Shen Mingzhi regarded Meng Xiang as a younger brother, though Meng Xiang had never addressed her as sister. Shen Mingzhi was acutely aware of the heart of a young boy, unguarded and candid, with desires laid bare in his eyes. I engage in games you cannot fathom. What games? The games of affection. After that day, he vanished for a considerable time until one fateful night when Shen Mingzhi returned home to find him standing at her doorstep, reeking of alcohol. He pressed her against the wall, his breath laced with ambiguity, articulating each word. Stop playing games with them, come play with me instead, sister. That was the first time Meng Xiang had called her sister, a utterance that unraveled the taut strings of her mind and obliterated her reason. Chapter 1. I no longer harbor affection for my younger brother. Shen Mingzhi instantly spotted Meng Xiang. The outdoor basketball court in early summer was a gathering place for male university students. The air was thick with sweat and exuberant cheers. Across the street, what drew Shen Mingzhi's attention first was not Meng Xiang's face, but his physique. Clad in a white basketball jersey, the fabric rippled in the air with each jump, and the restless hem was lifted by the boy's right hand, brushing against his face. The chiseled abdominal muscles, robust and striking, were undeniably captivating. He possessed a slender yet toned physique, with each abdominal contour distinctly pronounced, the line of his body leading down into the black athletic shorts. The shorts delineated a pair of long legs, muscular calves indicative of years of athleticism. The legs raced from one half of the court to the other, hands poised to receive the ball. With a firm landing, he leaped, launching the ball from his palm, which then traced a graceful parabola through the air, ultimately descending into the hoop. A solid shot. The ball barely grazed the rim, producing only a crisp thud as it landed an unequivocally clean three-pointer. The court erupted in applause. The protagonist of a shot turned around, and in that moment, Meng Xiang's visage came into view for Shen Mingzhi. Surrounded by admirers, his youthful and handsome face radiated vigor and confidence. It was unexpected, their eyes locking in a moment of mutual surprise. However, Meng Xiang's expression did not reflect the joy typically associated with a successful shot. Instead, it bore an air of indifference. The sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and yellow, casting a warm glow on his face, yet failing to diminish the cool detachment in his demeanor. He resembled an iceberg amidst the fervor, appearing to blend in with the crowd while remaining an isolated anomaly. Upon noticing Shen Mingzhi, his features subtly tightened. Others approached him, placing hands on his shoulder, seemingly engaging him in conversation. The distance was too great for Shen Mingzhi to decipher their words, and she remained oblivious to their discourse, as their shared gaze was abruptly severed by an obstruction that positioned itself before her. The newcomer possessed delicate, handsome features with a youthful naivety in his eyes. He extended his hand toward Shen Mingzhi, a phone resting in his palm, his intentions clear. Would it be convenient to add each other on WeChat? He had clearly noticed Shen Mingzhi long before this moment, and he was confident that at least 80% of the males present on the court were surreptitiously stealing glances at her. Nanjing University is divided into two campuses, with the southern campus, colloquially known as the male campus, housing all the engineering and technology disciplines. Institutions such as the College of Civil Engineering, the College of Mechanical and Electrical Engineering, and the College of Computer Science are located here, where the presence of female students is quite scarce. The total number of females in any given college scarcely suffices to form a single class. The sudden appearance of a female student, particularly one of striking beauty, captivates the attention of many, stirring their inner desires. Numerous individuals halted their activities on the sports field, occasionally glancing towards the outside. A heaviness settled on Meng Xiang's shoulder. He refrained from turning his head, his gaze fixated in the distance, his eyes darkening. His roommate's voice broke the silence. That girl has an exquisite figure. She must be from the dance academy, right? Just look at those long, fair legs and her waist, and her chest absolutely stunning. His words faltered abruptly as Yang Fan noticed the shift in Meng Xiang's expression, which transformed from its usual languid indifference to a foreboding gloom reminiscent of an impending storm. This was not the first time Meng Xiang had displayed such a change. The last instance occurred when everyone clamored for his cousin's contact information after seeing her, jokingly suggesting he should become her husband. Do you know that girl? Yang Fen Fentured Jiao Li. Meng Xiang replied with a simple mm. Yang Fan was taken aback. Huh? Before Yang Fan could inquire further about their relationship, Meng Xiang shrugged off his hand, resting on his shoulder, and strode away from the court, heading towards the street. While crossing the road, Meng Xiang brushed past a male student. Shen Mingzhi wore a smile as she inquired, "What brings you here?" Meng Xiang responded, "What are you doing here?" Shen Mingzhi replied, "I have something to attend to." Meng Xiang realized that such a question might be somewhat intrusive. The relationship between the two individuals is not particularly intimate. She is the close friend of his sister, and he is the brother of that close friend, creating an illusion of closeness that is, in reality, rather distant. After Meng Xiang posed his question, he realized his own impetuosity but refrained from offering an apology, and for a moment, an awkward silence enveloped them. With a light, dismissive smile, Meng Xiang remained silent, noting how Shen Mingzhi raised her wrist to glance at her watch. "Are you in a hurry?" he inquired. "No, I was just checking the time," she replied. "What brings you to our school all of a sudden?" "I mentioned I came to see you. Do you believe me?" The woman was strikingly beautiful when her gaze fixated on him. It seemed capable of hollowing out his reason. She appeared to excel at this art, effortlessly stirring emotions with the most casual words and indifferent gestures. Meng Xiang genuinely wished to ask her whether she was referring to him or her. But having spoken without thinking earlier, he found himself unable to voice the question now. With a light scoff, he remarked, "You're not inexperienced in romance." Shen Mingzhi raised an eyebrow. "You seem to know quite a bit." Meng Xiang smirked slightly and queried, "That guy from earlier looked decent. Did you add him on WeChat?" Shen Mingzhi expressed regret. "No." Meng Xiang turned his head, an expression of confusion crossing his face. The former was vibrant and radiant, while the latter was cool and indifferent, her eyes betraying no emotion as she merely responded with a faint, "Oh." Furthermore, Shen Mingzhi declared, "I've long since lost interest in your brother." Meng Xiang, with an impassive expression, retorted, "When did you become my sister?" Shen Mingzhi replied, "I'm a good friend of your sister. Shouldn't you address me as sister?" Meng Xiang's demeanor grew colder. "Do not recklessly claim familial ties." Shen Mingzhi curled her lips and murmured, "After all these years of knowing you, I've yet to hear you call me sister. Honestly, Meng Xiang, you only behave like a docile puppy in front of your sister. I'm human, not a dog. Just a metaphor. Oh. However, your particular breed of dog is quite rare before Meng Ning. You're a little puppy, while in front of others, you transform into a wolf with sharp fangs." A gust of wind swept past, bending the corners of Shen Mingzi's eyes, her gaze settling on a car parked outside the teaching building. A faint smile graced her lips. "I mustn't linger, my phone has arrived. I shall take my leave." Meng Xiang remained rooted to the spot, watching as Shen Mingzhi dashed toward the engineering building, the wind lifting her skirt and long hair, billowing like waves, swaying in his vision. The relentless tides surged upon his visual cortex, causing him to squint, the encroaching waves bringing with them a suffocating atmosphere. This was due to Shen Mingzhi pausing beside a vehicle. The driver's door swung open, and a man alighted. Shen Mingzhi accepted her phone from him, then turned and settled into the passenger seat. The car ignited, turned, and gradually departed, passing by him while leaving a cloud of exhaust in its wake. Even in their senior year, the school still enforced a curfew of 11 o'clock. After lights out, the dormitory buzzed with late-night conversations. As they approached graduation in a couple of months, the topics largely revolved around careers and futures. Once they had dissected this subject thoroughly, someone unexpectedly inquired, "Meng Xiang, do you truly know that girl from the basketball court?" A seemingly light word ignited the curiosity of many. "Is she your girlfriend?" "She is truly beautiful. No wonder so many women pursue you, yet you remain unattached." "If it were me, I would also refuse." "No," Meng Xiang replied, lifting his hand to shield his eyes, murmuring, "She's a friend of my sister." This explanation carried more weight than admitting she was his girlfriend. In the darkness, Meng Xiang lowered his hand, his previously closed eyes snapping open. It is said that a wolf's eyes emit a terrifying gleam upon spotting its prey. At this moment, Meng Xiang's eyes shone brightly yet ominously. Why should the fertile waters flow to outsiders? Wouldn't it be better for me to be with her? Chapter 2. A New Boyfriend. Following Meng Xiang's words, an unsettling silence enveloped the dormitory. The cool breeze from the air conditioner stirred, and even the faintest sounds seemed to echo loudly. The other three roommates remained momentarily stunned by Meng Xiang's declaration. After a prolonged pause, they began to regain their composure. Yang Fan asked, "What do you mean by that?" Zhao Qi inquired, "Could it possibly mean what I think it does?" Shen Hang remarked, "This implication seems somewhat alarming, yet also intriguing." Their meanings circled like a tongue twister. Meng Xiang's brow furrowed tightly, and his eyes, shrouded in obscurity, accumulated an ineffable sentiment. "However, it seems that sister is not here to seek you out. Is she Meng Xiang?" Yang Fan, who shared a bed with Meng Xiang, turned over, causing both their beds to shift slightly. "I saw her getting into Teacher Lu's car." A particular word piqued Meng Xiang's interest. "Teacher Lu?" Yang Fan replied, "Yes, Teacher Lu Yanqi from the mathematics department." Shen Heng, "Teacher Lu, I recall aren't you the one who's been a regular presence on our school forum? Quite handsome indeed." Every educational institution has its share of prominent figures, both among faculty and students. Prior to this, the professors at Nanjing University gained notoriety primarily due to alarmingly high failure rates and stringent attendance policies. Lu Yanqi was a notable exception. Students, too, earned their fame for similar reasons. In the realm of university life, academic performance has ceased to be the primary battlefield. Instead, physical appearance reigns supreme. The school forum occasionally hosts votes for the most attractive male and female students. While the title of Campus Belle changes yearly, the title of Campus Prince has remained unchanged for 4 consecutive years. That prince is none other than Meng Xiang. Beauty is subjective, and each individual possesses a unique interpretation of handsomeness, which accounts for the ever-changing campus belles and the divergent opinions that arise even from the voting results. Yet, no one has ever questioned the title of Campus Prince Meng Xiang. He embodies the quintessential charm of a university heartthrob, even clad in a humble, inexpensive white shirt. He exudes an aura of refreshing authenticity, contrasting sharply with those who seem to be steeped in the trappings of society, adorned with luxury brands. Throughout his nearly 4 years at university, Meng Xiang has primarily interacted with teachers and students from his own major, remaining largely unfamiliar with those from other faculties. Meng Xiang, Lu Yanqi? He echoed the name, sensing the curiosity in his tone. Hearing his confusion, Yang Fan rolled his eyes in exasperation. "I mean, Meng, could you perhaps occasionally venture online to see what's been happening at our school lately?" Meng Xiang, "Aren't you all surfing every day?" Yang Fan chuckled at this, saying, "So we're the paparazzi gossiping about you daily, are we?" Meng Xiang replied, "Not only gossiping, but you also spread my affairs as if they were mere gossip. When that girl comes to chat with us, you know how it is, brash and straightforward, saying whatever comes to mind. Among boys, there is rarely any intrigue. They are quick to concede and readily belittle themselves, speaking casually." "Meng Xiang, I know." After a brief pause, he inquired, "Any gossip about Lu Yanqi?" Ah, ah, ah. It was unusual for him to engage in gossip, but today was different. Yet, they were indeed straightforward, simply stating whatever came to mind without delving into why he might be asking. After all, discussing gossip is a source of delight. "I heard that Teacher Lu has a girlfriend, and she is exceptionally beautiful." "What girlfriend?" "He's already married. That's called a wife." Right, it's a wife." Once I find a girlfriend, I too shall marry her." "Which unfortunate soul have you set your sights on to become your wife?" Their banter was relentless. Yang Fan immediately leaped off the bed, quickly climbing onto Zhao Qi's bed, exchanging playful punches. "What do you mean? Am I not handsome enough?" Zhao Qi chuckled. "Handsome? Please, I am the most handsome of all." On the other side, Chun Heng, reveling in the chaos, illuminated the stage with his phone flashlight. "Let me see, which of these two hideous beings is uglier?" In an instant, the 3 individuals were entangled in a scuffle. A dormitory, a corridor, 2 worlds separated by a thin veil. One world was vibrant and tumultuous, a cacophony of laughter and shouts. The other, silent and desolate, resonated only with the sound of breathing. After a moment of stillness, Meng Xiang retrieved his phone, scrolling through his WeChat contacts until he found Shen Mingzhi. Her profile picture, a selfie, was strikingly beautiful, reminiscent of her Namia, resplendent rose in full bloom. Meng Xiang was uncertain how long he had been staring at the blank chat at her face. The phone screen flickered between brightness and darkness, a cycle that seemed endless. After a considerable pause, he pressed his lips together and typed, "Have you gotten your phone?" a question he already knew the answer to. Meng Xiang, Shen Mingzhi, I am communicating with you telepathically. Meng Xiang, Shen Mingzhi, try sending another question mark. The tension in Meng Xiang's lips eased. So you did receive it. Shen Mingzhi, if I hadn't gotten my phone, how could I message you? Meng Xiang returned her words. Telepathic communication. Shen Mingzhi, when did you become so dull? Meng Xiang, wasn't it you who initiated this? Shen Mingzhi, perhaps there is a generational gap. It seems we can no longer engage in pleasant conversation. The glow of the phone screen cast upon his face was set to its dimmest, yet it felt like a blinding light, causing him to blink in discomfort. Meng Xiang, you are only 3 years older than me. Shen Mingzhi, 3 years creates a generational gap. Meng Xiang, I have no generational gap with my sister. Shen Mingzhi, so, how about you call me sister? Meng Xiang fell silent. When they first met, Shen Mingzhi went to great lengths to make Meng Xiang call her sister. Shen Mingzhi was fiercely persistent, and Meng Xiang was equally stubborn, refusing to comply. Years have passed, yet Shen Mingzhi remains the same as ever, appearing mature and composed, yet still harboring the mischief of a young girl. Meng Xiang, I won't call you that. Shen Mingzhi, just call me sister, and he'll treat you to a meal. Meng Xiang smirked slightly, thinking about whether he looked like someone who needed a meal, yet his fingers, seemingly out of sync with his thoughts, typed out 4 words. When is it? Shen Mingzhi, next Friday. Meng Xiang, I'm Shen Mingzhi, so just call me sister. Meng Xiang, I haven't eaten yet. Shen Mingzhi, do you think I would skip out on paying? Meng Xiang, who knows? Shen Mingzhi, both annoyed and amused. You must call me that after eating. Meng Xiang maintained his usual impassive demeanor, taking a moment before slowly typing, fine. Upon receiving this message from him, Shen Mingzhi exited the chat interface. In the message bar, there lay several unread messages, and she clicked to open the one at the top. From Lu Yanch. Is that guy a new boyfriend? Lu Yanch, the one on the basketball court. Shen Mingzhi raised an eyebrow and chuckled lightly. Nonsense, that's my friend's younger brother. Lu Yanch, I thought you were seeing a student. Shen Mingzhi, I'm not interested in student boys. Lu Yanch, but you're interested in your friend's younger brother. Lu Yanshu, someone has been watching you intently. Lu Yanshu, in the rearview mirror, I can see that he is fixated on my car. It cannot possibly be due to its aesthetic appeal. Shen Mingzhi, what do men typically care about? 3 things: cars, money, and women. How can you be certain he isn't admiring your vehicle? Lu Yanshu, and how can you be sure that he isn't gazing at my car because of you? Shen Mingzhi paused, then shook her head in denial. I am a close friend of his sister. I have known him since he was in middle school. To him, I am merely his older sister's friend, and he is like a younger brother to me. If he is looking at the car, it's likely he suspects we are involved romantically. I would wager that his roommates are currently speculating whether you, Professor Lu, are driving around with a woman, pondering if she is your wife or, perchance, your mistress. Lu Yanshu. Chapter 3. All I lack is a girlfriend. As the screen of his phone dimmed, Meng Xiang rested his hands behind his head. The conversation had long since drifted into oblivion, and no one seemed to care about the relationship between Lu Yanxi and Shen Mingzhi, except for Meng Xiang. That night, he tossed and turned, yearning to ask Shen Mingzhi why her phone was in Lu Yanxi's possession. Yet, his rationality ultimately subdued his impulse. Their relationship, after all, had not yet reached the stage of sharing trivial daily matters. A week passed. On Friday morning, the moment Meng Xiang awoke, he glanced at WeChat. Throughout the day, his mind was elsewhere. His phone lay prominently in sight, and at the slightest notification, he would abandon whatever he was doing to check it. Numerous messages awaited him, yet not a single one was of his desire. As the clock struck 10 that evening, the silence from the other party remained unbroken. Meng Xiang tossed aside his phone and rose, shedding his clothes as he made his way to the bathroom. A new update appeared in his moments, a photograph from a high-altitude bar, vibrant neon lights illuminating the scene, with a floor-to-ceiling window framing the silhouette of the photographer. Alongside a man seated in a booth across the sofa. The air thickened in an instant, with his head bowed and damp hair dripping. Meng Xiang's gaze remained devoid of emotion. After a prolonged silence, a smirk crept across his lips, a smile tinged with indifference. He stared at the protagonist of the photograph. His voice hoarse. Shen Mingzhi, is it really so brazen to stand someone up? Shen Mingzhi had arrived at the bar alone. The windowside booth required a minimum spend of 3,000, and after the waiter confirmed her solitary status multiple times, he took her order with a hint of perplexity. However, upon hearing her selection of drinks, he instantly understood. A single bottle of wine was priced at 5,000, far exceeding the minimum requirement. In the bar, beautiful women are always the center of attention, particularly those who are alone, making them all the more desirable. Shen Mingzhi had settled in for about half an hour when a multitude of gentlemen approached her, their numbers easily reaching double digits. Some acted frivolously, positioning themselves beside her, while others feigned chivalry, taking a seat on the opposite sofa. Regrettably, Shen Mingzhi had little inclination to entertain their advances today, dismissing each overture. As drinks and snacks were served, she nibbled absent-mindedly, her gaze fixed on the towering buildings visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her phone, resting on the table, vibrated incessantly, inundating her with messages, followed by voice calls. The prolonged vibrations were more bothersome than the cacophony of the dance floor. Picking up her phone, she declined the call. With over 30 unread messages, she tapped on the top contact. Ms. Liu, today's incident was my fault, but I acted with your best interests at heart. Upon reading this, she lost all desire to continue. Suddenly, the world around her dimmed as someone settled onto the sofa across from her. Shen Mingzhi had no interest in discerning the identity of her visitor, be they man or woman. It mattered little to her. She dropped her phone, lifted her glass, and drank deeply, not sparing a glance at her counterpart. Once finished, she turned her gaze back to the window, and after a prolonged moment of frustration, she pivoted to address the newcomer. Can you? Her words trailed off as she recognized the person before her. The alcohol-laden air escaping her lips in a mere 2 syllables. Meng Xiang? The bar's dim lighting obscured Meng Xiang's face in shadow, rendering it indistinct, save for the slight movement of his thin lips. What a coincidence. Shen Mingzhi couldn't help but chuckle. You came to the bar alone for some fun? Meng Xiang pondered. It is all too evident why an adult man would visit a bar alone. His demeanor darkened slightly, but the dim lighting cloaked his expression. Is one not permitted to visit a bar simply to enjoy a drink? How dreadfully mundane. Yet here he was, engaging in such tedious pursuits. In a fleeting moment, the laser lights illuminated the room, casting a crimson glow upon her porcelain skin, as if it had torn open a wound, bleeding a vivid scarlet. However, when she turned to him with a radiant smile, that smear of crimson resembled nothing more than a kiss mark. Shen Mingzhi rested her chin on her hand, her tone playful yet reproachful. Children should not meddle in the affairs of adults. Meng Xiang replied, I'm merely 3 years your junior. Must you always treat me as though I were 13? Shen Mingzhi countered. To me, anyone younger than I is still a child. Meng Xiang lowered his gaze, turning his head to the side, relishing a moment of silence before raising his voice, devoid of any emotion. And you? How is it that I've been sitting here for so long and have yet to see your friend? Shen Mingzhi replied, I did not bring a friend. Meng Xiang turned back to her, surprised. You came alone? Indeed, she confirmed. Meng Xiang was tempted to inquire about the man in her social media photo, yet he hesitated, fearing that such a question might reveal his own unease. Instead, he retrieved his phone, magnifying the image repeatedly. In the photograph, there was no drink before the man. It seemed he was merely there to strike up a conversation. What was he gazing at? Suddenly, Shen Mingzhi leaned in, pouring wine with a casual tone, teasing him. Are you engrossed in chatting with your girlfriend? I've called your name several times, yet you didn't respond. I don't have a girlfriend, he replied instinctively, pressing the screen of his phone to black. He didn't wish for her to see that he was scrutinizing the photos she had posted. It would be rather foolish. His gaze turned slightly cold. Such humor was unamusing. Is it wrong to make a joke? She asked, a hint of playfulness in her voice. Please refrain from such jokes. Understood, she acknowledged, swirling the wine in her glass, the amber liquid trailing through the chaotic night. As the music from the nearby dance floor softened, she inquired, do you frequent bars often? Occasionally. This is my first time, he replied. What do you do at a bar? Merely drink. Indeed. I haven't even touched a drop. Then you might as well go to a street stall, beer paired with barbecue. I didn't come to the bar for the alcohol. I came to catch you. A sudden silence enveloped them. Meng Xiang remained silent, and Shen Mingzhi, too, kept quiet, pouring herself drink after drink. Before long, a bottle was nearly empty, and she chose not to order another, instead picking at the squid strips on her plate with mustard. How long do you plan to stay here? She asked abruptly. How much longer do you intend to remain? Meng Xiang countered. Perhaps another 2 hours. Oh, another stretch of silence followed, as it became apparent she was subtly urging him to leave. Meng Xiang was surprised at his own audacity. He had no intention of moving. Shen Mingzhi was both exasperated and amused. Just as she was about to respond, he inquired, "Why don't you review our chat history? What did you say to me last weekend?" Taken aback, Shen Mingzhi hesitated. "You want me to look for it?" His tone was decidedly impatient, revealing a somewhat irritable temperament. As she noted, nevertheless, she complied and began to sift through their messages. Upon discovering her invitation for dinner, her expression momentarily stiffened. The next instant, she looked up, her voice laced with sincerity. "I'm terribly sorry. I completely forgot." The irritation that had previously marked her demeanor evaporated, replaced by a palpable sense of regret. "You wouldn't happen to be holding a grudge over this, would you? I've been rather busy these past few days, overwhelmed with family matters. Which is why I overlooked it. But why didn't you remind me? I had forgotten as well." Meng Xiang reclined leisurely on the sofa, remarking, "It was only when you snapped at me just now that I recalled it. One cannot be irritable when in the wrong. If you sought solitude due to your foul mood, why come to a bar where it's crowded?" "Because I wanted to drink," she replied. "Is it not permissible to drink at home?" "Please, only middle-aged individuals wallow in solitary drinking at home. I am still in my prime," she retorted, exuding confidence. Meng Xiang smirked, a blend of amusement and mockery dancing on his lips, as he echoed her words, "In your prime." This remark struck a chord with Shen Mingzhi. She was acutely aware of her many flaws. While she could tolerate jibes from others, she could not abide any dissent regarding her appearance. "Am I not beautiful?" she challenged. "Let me tell you, since childhood, I have been the fairest in our neighborhood, with suitors who could circle the South Playground 3 times just for me. The women pursuing me could easily circle the Nanda Playground 3 times. Meng Xiang, unwilling to be outdone. The competition feels rather absurd. Meng Xiang. Knowing the answer, Shen Mingzhi beams with pride, declaring that the number of boyfriends I have nearly totals 2 hands. Naturally, Meng Xiang is aware of this. Owing to the connection his sister, Meng Ning, maintains between them, it is entirely normal for adults to engage in romantic relationships, particularly for a girl like Shen Mingzhi. Even if she dates a new boyfriend each year since graduating from high school, that would amount to 7 or 8 in total. It cannot be deemed promiscuous. Yet it hardly qualifies as loyalty either. Meng Xiang furrows his brow. Is she quite proud of this? Shen Mingzhi, unexpectedly perplexed, chuckles lightly, wondering what there is to be proud of. After all, despite the numerous relationships, none have culminated in a marriage. Rather than pride, it seems more a testament to failure. Suddenly, it feels as if a floor-to-ceiling window has shattered, with the pitch-black night pressing against his eyelids, constricting his breath. Meng Xiang, do you date with the intention of marriage? Shen Mingzhi, of course, it's for enjoyment. Meng Xiang, then that suffices. Shen Mingzhi pauses for a few seconds before bursting into laughter, remarking that I don't seem to embody the characteristics of a younger brother at all. Each time he hears this term, Meng Xiang inexplicably feels irritated. Could she refrain from constantly bringing up their age difference? Or does she yearn for a younger brother? Craving brotherly affection? Some lack paternal love, others maternal love. Yet, Meng Xiang has never encountered anyone like Shen Mingzhi, who appears to be longing for a younger brother's affection. Shen Mingzhi laughs heartily. What nonsense are you spouting? Meng Xiang, if you don't lack a younger brother, don't keep calling me that. Shen Mingzhi, you are essentially a younger brother. Meng Xiang leaned his elbows on his knees, his upper body bent forward, his face emerging from the dimness, revealing a tempest of emotions, laid bare before her gaze. He exuded a somber chill, radiating an air of hostility. I do not lack an older sister, Shen Mingzhi. After finishing a bottle of liquor, the effects of the spirits lingered intensely. Perhaps intoxication muddled Shen Mingzhi's mind, rendering her less coherent. She followed Meng Xiang's lead and continued. Indeed, the illustrious young master Meng seems to lack nothing except for a girlfriend. How about this? With a flushed face from drunkenness, Shen Mingzhi cheerfully suggested. Why don't you tell me your type of girl, and I shall introduce you to one. Her enthusiasm was reminiscent of a brothel's enticing allure. I have plenty of young ladies around me, gentle and delicate, obedient and lively, seductive and charming. Tell me, what type do you prefer? As her words grew increasingly absurd, her eyes sparkled with fervor, though her body swayed unsteadily. Eventually, her tongue seemed to tangle, rendering her speech unclear. Meng Xiang, feeling exasperated, stood up, crossed the coffee table, and leaned down before her. Shen Mingzhi reclined on the sofa, watching as he drew nearer, his youthful and handsome face radiating arrogance and nonchalance. Yet, whether it was merely her illusion, She thought she detected a hint of tenderness in his clear, bright eyes. Like a mirage, a fleeting illusion that could vanish in the blink of an eye. Meng Xiang, what kind of girl do you like? Shen Mingzhi murmured. You always cling to your sister. Could it be that you have feelings for her? No, perhaps it's a preference for the type of older sister? As her words fell, darkness enveloped Shen Mingzhi's vision. A hand covered her eyes, and a warm breath brushed against her ear. In the sultry and fervent atmosphere of the bar, that warmth seemed to carry a teasing undertone, caressing her earlobe, the sensation almost enticingly provocative. Yet, Meng Xiang's voice was as cold as ice cubes in a drink, devoid of warmth. Shen Mingzhi, you are intoxicated. You are intoxicated, but I remain sober. Therefore, do not provoke. Author's note, Meng Xiang, yearning for a kiss and acknowledgement. Chapter 4. The room rate is too expensive. The following day, the sun shone brightly. Upon waking, Shen Mingzhi felt as if her head might split open. She propped herself up and surveyed her surroundings. The environment felt unfamiliar. The room was simply decorated, containing only a bed, a television, and a small sofa, clearly indicating that she was in a hotel. As her memories tugged at her mind, she recalled that Meng Xiang had brought her to this hotel. However, there were no traces left by Meng Xiang. Naturally, there shouldn't be any. Her phone lay beside her pillow. Shen Mingzhi opened it and found a message from Meng Xiang on WeChat. 2 hours prior, Meng Xiang had sent her a message. I have only booked the room for 1 day. If you do not wake up by noon, you will have to cover the room fee yourself. Shen Mingzhi clicked her tongue in annoyance. Where did this frugality come from? Glancing at the time, it was just past 10, with over an hour remaining before checkout. She tossed her phone aside and lingered in bed for a while longer before finally getting up. Having gone nearly 24 hours without sustenance, Shen Mingzhi felt an insatiable hunger gnawing at her. Deciding to order takeout, she anticipated indulging in a meal upon her return home. As she opened the delivery app, a notification appeared at the top of her phone, bearing a message from Meng Xiang. Are you awake? Maintaining an air of nonchalance, Shen Mingzhi swiped the message away as if she had not seen it, and proceeded to place her order. After several minutes, she finalized her choices and exited the app, turning her attention to WeChat. Shen Mingzhi, yes. Her demeanor had shifted from earlier coldness to a warm friendliness. Thank you for last night. I'll treat you to dinner next time. Meng Xiang replied, you owe me 2 meals. With her head resting against the window, Shen Mingzhi's expression remained tranquil. Why are you being so meticulous? Meng Xiang responded, with you, I must be a bit particular. Shen Mingzhi retorted, why didn't you mention I should transfer last night's hotel bill to you? Meng Xiang, 10:34, go ahead and transfer it. The early summer sunlight began to manifest, streaming through the car window, casting a warm glow that felt almost searing against her eyelids. At most, she thought, he could have suggested that she treat him to another meal. Only Meng Xiang would be so straightforward. No, it was not straightforwardness, it was stinginess. Shen Mingzhi teased him, your sister is quite generous. Why are you so miserly? Meng Xiang replied, I need to save money. I want to give her a substantial red envelope when she gets married. Shen Mingzhi sighed, I can't stand your obsession with your sister. Just then, the driver interjected, Miss Weavy arrived. Thank you, driver, Shen Mingzhi replied as she gathered her belongings and exited the vehicle, making her way home. As she clutched her phone, it vibrated once more. Shen Mingzhi opened it to find another message from Meng Xiang. Are you still at the hotel? Shen Mingzhi, I certainly cannot be. Meng Xiang. Shen Mingzhi, the room rate is too exorbitant. I simply cannot justify it. Meng Xiang, you can just stay there. They have frozen my card. Shen Mingzhi smiled, teasingly. What if they have? I still have to transfer money to you, right? Meng Xiang. Shen Mingzhi, don't you agree? Meng Xiang, no need. Shen Mingzhi, no need for what? Even through the screen, Shen Mingzhi could envision Meng Xiang's exasperated expression. No need for you to transfer money. As she sent the message, Shen Mingzhi entered the elevator. The signal in the building's elevator was notoriously poor. She stuffed her phone into her pocket while rummaging for her keys. Before she could find them, the elevator arrived at her floor. With her head down, she stepped out and walked toward her door. Just 2 meters away from the entrance, a familiar voice suddenly echoed through the quiet, narrow corridor. Hey, Shen Mingzhi. She turned toward the sound, her gaze colliding with a pair of clear, indifferent eyes. He raised his hand, indicating the takeout plastic bag dangling from his fingers. Shen Mingzhi paused, feeling somewhat bewildered by the current situation. What are you doing here? Delivering your keys. Huh. Meng Xiang stood upright, his other hand lifted high, clutching a silver gray keychain. No wonder Shen Mingzhi had been searching for so long without success. They were in his possession. She took them, asking as she opened the door, "How did my keys end up with you?" "They fell into my car. The car wash attendant noticed them while washing the car today. Last night." Meng Xiang had driven her to the hotel, which likely explained how the keys ended up in his vehicle. Once inside, Shen Mingzhi inquired, "Have you eaten?" Meng Xiang replied, "Not yet." Shen Mingzhi, "Just right. Since I've called you quite a lot, why not stay and share a meal?" Meng Xiang acquiesced. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him with a gentle motion. After changing his shoes, he navigated the familiar path to the dining area, placing the items on the table. As he turned around, he observed Shen Mingzhi tugging at the collar of her garment, bringing it to her nose to inhale its scent. Not satisfied with her own assessment, she leaned closer to Meng Xiang, extending her sleeve towards him, urging, "Smell this. Is there not a distinct aroma?" Meng Xiang raised his gaze, inquiring, "What aroma?" Shen Mingzhi replied, "The scent of alcohol." Meng Xiang smirked slightly. "Did you not bathe at the hotel?" Leaving Meng Xiang alone in the dining room, Shen Mingzhi, a lone woman and a man in close quarters, had proceeded to take a shower. As Meng Xiang's head lowered gradually, a sardonic curve formed at the corners of his mouth. She truly did not perceive him as a mature male, but rather as a younger brother. Typically, Shen Mingzhi dressed quite casually at home, donning pajamas regardless of the season. Living alone, she wore whatever brought her comfort. However, as she slipped into her sleepwear, it suddenly dawned on her that there was another person in the house, a male at that. Although he was her best friend's younger brother, and despite her close bond with her friend Meng Ning, it was still rather difficult to regard him as her own sibling. Ultimately, Meng Xiang was indeed a healthy, adult male, and her choice of pajamas seemed somewhat inappropriate. Hence, she removed the sleepwear and painstakingly rummaged through her wardrobe to find a suitable outfit, donning a cotton short-sleeve top and long pants before rejoining the dining table. She had initially thought Meng Xiang would be dining while she showered, only to find upon her return that the takeout remained untouched. "Shen Mingzhi, why don't you eat first?" Meng Xiang picked up his chopsticks. It is basic etiquette to wait for others before dining. As Shen Mingzhi gathered her hair into a ponytail with a hair tie, she teased him, "Indeed, you are the young master of the Meng family. You seem to adhere to quite a few rules of propriety." True to form, his brow furrowed. "I am not a young master." Once her hair was secured, Shen Mingzhi picked up her chopsticks and replied dismissively, "Yes, you are a little master." Meng Xiang could not be bothered to argue over the title. After finishing their meal, he did not linger. As he changed his shoes at the entrance, a voice called out, "Meng Xiang, wait a moment," followed by hurried footsteps. A flicker of hope crossed Meng Xiang's eyes, his heart racing as if it might leap out of his throat. However, the reality did not align with his inner yearning. Shen Mingzhi approached, holding a plastic bag, the takeout he had brought in earlier. She handed it to him, saying, "Please help me toss out the takeout on your way out. Thank you." His expression dimmed momentarily, but he quickly masked it, returning to his usual cool demeanor as he accepted the takeout bag, replying, "Oh, Shen Mingzhi, let's go." Meng Xiang, Having donned his shoes, Meng Xiang turned with the takeout bag in one hand and rested the other on the doorknob, hesitating to move. The gaze directed at him from behind was undoubtedly filled with curiosity, as she inquired, "What's wrong? Can't the door open?" "It was not that." "Well, you owe me 2 meals." Meng Xiang loosened his grip on the doorknob, turned around, and faced her. In a businesslike tone, he inquired, "This counts as 1 meal. When do you intend to repay the other?" Shen Mingzhi momentarily paused, a smile escaping her lips. "Is this truly 1 meal?" Meng Xiang responded, "Indeed." Shen Mingzhi asked, "Are you so easily satisfied?" Meng Xiang replied, "Does it have to be a French feast to qualify as a meal?" Shen Mingzhi countered, "It doesn't necessarily have to be French cuisine. Personally, I enjoy drinking. How about I take you out for drinks next time?" Meng Xiang pondered for a moment before shaking his head. "Don't you like drinking?" Shen Mingzhi queried. "Not particularly." "What if you end up drinking too much like yesterday, and I have to carry you to the hotel? It would be quite troublesome." Shen Mingzhi was momentarily taken aback by his words. "You could just leave me at the bar and let another man carry you to the hotel, couldn't you?" It was noon, yet the sunlight at the entrance was feeble. Meng Xiang's face was shrouded in shadow, his gaze fixed intently upon her, languid and relaxed, yet infused with an indescribable sentiment. A blend of resignation and, more prominently, the wisdom of a mature man offering counsel to an innocent girl ensconced in her ivory tower. He remarked, "Do you believe that if another man carries you to the hotel, it is for you two to share a room?" or for him to share one with you. It was evident that she was the older of the two. The passage of time had granted her the composure to remain unruffled by such remarks. Perhaps not solely due to her age, but rather her experiences, having weathered numerous instances of such ambiguous banter. Indeed, his words were steeped in ambiguity. Beyond the ambiguity, there lingers a subtle sensation of being questioned by a rightful consort. Humanity is a creature adept at masquerade. Both body and language serve as formidable weapons. Yet the gaze remains vulnerable. The eyes, the most fragile of organs, can unravel even the most meticulously crafted facade with a single glance. Young boys, untouched by the complexities of life, are particularly transparent. Through their eyes, desires and emotions are laid bare, unraveling like threads, diffusing into the air and mingling with the floating motes of light. Shen Mingzhi seized a speck of dust, tilting her head abruptly, a serene smile gracing her lips. Meng Xiang, you go to the bar merely to drink, but not I. Pausing momentarily, she loosened her arms crossed before her, extending them backward to release the tightly bound elastic. As it fell away, her long hair cascaded like seaweed, and with it, her candidly ambiguous words flowed forth. Should the mood strike, she might indulge in a delightful one-night affair with a charming gentleman. Chapter 5. I am your father. Once Meng Xiang had departed, Shen Mingzhi's first action was to slip her hands beneath her garment, feeling for the clasp of her bra. With a deliberate motion, she loosened and removed it, carelessly tossing it onto the sofa. She then collapsed onto the couch herself, staring blankly at the ceiling. The image of Meng Xiang storming out, his face twisted in displeasure, flickered in her mind, prompting an involuntary smile to curve her lips. Quite endearing, indeed, though regrettably. He is the younger brother of her dear friend, Meng Ning, the most significant companion in her life. Shen Mingzhi could go an entire year without seeing her parents. Yet she ensured to meet Meng Ning at least once a month. To speak frankly, Meng Xiang is quite remarkable. After all, he is the campus heartthrob of Nanjing University, possessing commendable looks, physique, and family background. His only flaw, however, lies in the fact that he is the younger brother of Meng Ning. Shen Mingzhi's thoughts were not centered on the prospect of a romance between the two. Rather, she pondered how she would face Meng Ning should she decide to break things off with Meng Xiang. Although Meng Ning is technically his cousin, she has always regarded him as her own brother. Shen Mingzhi has no intention of allowing a mere man to jeopardize the bond she shares with her longtime friend. Is love of paramount importance? Indeed it is. Yet, it is hardly worth sacrificing a cherished friendship for the sake of a man. The world is not short of men. In the expansive living room, even the slightest sound is magnified, and thus, the buzzing vibration of her phone resonated loudly. Shen Mingzhi reached for her phone and glanced at the screen. It was a message from her childhood friend. Are you drinking tonight? There will be boys. The follow-up note read, they are incredibly handsome. Indeed, men are abundant. Shen Mingzhi certainly does not lack male admirers. The address was provided, a bar. Amidst the vibrant chaos of the night, Shen Mingzhi navigated such environments with ease, raising her glass to drink. In the booth, 3 or 5 young men, as her friend had described, were quite handsome. One of them approached her after she took her seat. Why aren't you dancing? He inquired. I don't wish to dance. Then shall I keep you company with a drink? Shen Mingzhi clinked her glass with his. The young man had introduced himself earlier, but she had not caught his name and thus referred to him simply as you. Don't you find it boring? Accompanying you for a drink? How could that possibly be boring? He must be quite the seasoned player when it comes to romantic entanglements, effortlessly spewing sweet nothings. What girl in the dance hall could possibly rival your beauty? It is indeed a privilege to share a drink with you. One wonders how many girls have been charmed by such empty flattery. It is rather tedious. Though my heart is steeped in boredom, I maintain a facade of measured politeness, and excuse myself to the restroom. As Shen Mingzhi sets down her glass and rises to head towards the lavatory, her phone buzzes with an incoming message. She does not rush to check it, opting first to dry her hands with a paper towel. Once her hands are dry, she retrieves her phone, discovering it to be a message from Meng Xiang. Meng Xiang, I forgot to ask, is Lu Yanqi your boyfriend? Shen Mingzhi raises an eyebrow and deliberately responds, indeed. Meng Xiang, isn't he married? Shen Mingzhi, we are having an affair. Even through the screen, Shen Mingzhi can sense Meng Xiang's speechlessness. After putting away her phone, she looks up to find her friend standing silently across from her, seemingly having been there for quite some time, like a ghost, startling her. Why are you so quiet? You have a boyfriend yet you're out here drinking? Her friend retorts, rolling her eyes. Shen Mingzhi is more inclined to roll her eyes in response. What makes you think I have a boyfriend? Her friend points to her phone. While chatting, your smile was practically reaching the heavens. Didn't you act like this when you were in love before? Shen Mingzhi instinctively touches the corner of her mouth. Did I? Would I deceive you? A friend remarked. Just moments ago, you sat there with a countenance steeped in despondency, inscribed with thoughts of can this pest be silenced, and I long to escape. Who will rescue me? Yet, when engaged in conversation via your phone, your visage radiated sentiments of I am utterly blissful and this man is truly remarkable. Shen Mingzhi scoffed. Was it truly that exaggerated? Indeed it was. Pray tell, what sort of man? Merely a younger brother, not a boyfriend. A brother, you say. Is he handsome? Quite so. Is he affluent? Do I appear to be in need of money? No, you do not. Thus are you two together? He is genuinely just a brother. Do you expect me to believe that? Shen Mingzhi laid her cards on the table. Well, he might harbor feelings for me. But a romantic involvement is implausible. Why is it implausible? Shen Mingzhi countered. Hypothetically, if I were to date your brother, how would you feel? Her friend's eyes widened in disbelief. My brother is only 12 years old. Have you heard of the minor protection law? Shen Mingzhi raised an eyebrow. Sensing the conversation was veering into absurdity, her friend suddenly realized. So it is your friend's younger brother who has taken a liking to you, the stunningly beautiful and wealthy sister? The restroom was enveloped in a dim crimson hue, casting an atmosphere of ambiguous allure. The distant music from the dance floor added a touch of whimsicality to the scene, prompting fanciful musings. A close friend morphing into a relative. How delightful. Shen Mingzhi cautioned her. A romantic relationship does not necessarily culminate in marriage. Separation is also a possibility. Friend, why do you always think about breaking up when you're in a relationship? Shen Mingzhi retorted. Am I supposed to think about marriage? I'm not a naive young girl, dreaming of eternal love. Please, darling, wake up. There are countless relationships that start with the intention of marriage, only to end over disagreements about dowries. The friend immediately lowered her head, looking dejected, and conceded. You're right. If you and my brother were to break up, I wouldn't know how to face the two of you. Shen Mingzhi patted her shoulder, offering reassurance. Don't worry, your brother is just 12, still wearing a child genius smartwatch. I have no interest in such a little brat. Shen Mingzhi exchanged contact information with the man who had approached her at the booth. When he sent her a name request, she learned his name was Suiyu, a lamb entering the tiger's den. Shen Mingzhi had always played the latter role. She had no desire to be a lamb. No thanks, my ride has arrived, she declined politely. Her friend joined her in the car. Both had consumed quite a bit of alcohol and settled into the back seat. The windows on either side were lowered, allowing the night breeze to caress their faces, blurring their emotions in a hazy mist. Which home? She mused against the night wind, her voice soft. Where else could it be? My aunt's place. A moment of silence ensued. And then I found my mother there. It's been 3 years since I graduated from university, and she's still the same, urging me to find a proper job, something with 9 to 5 hours, or to take civil service exams. Shen Mingzhi's current occupation is that of a full-time author, a title that the older generation refers to as a freelancer. Freedom, in its essence, is merely the act of languishing at home without purpose. Regardless of how much wealth Shen Mingzhi accumulates, in her mother's eyes, she remains an idle drifter. For one must not only consider immediate gains, but also contemplate long-term benefits. These were her mother's exact words. Domestic matters are often beyond the judgment of outsiders. A close friend, with a faint smile, eventually inquired, What are your thoughts on this? Shen Mingzhi replied, What else is there to think? I shall do as I please. She only bears me but does not nourish me, so why should she now presume to control my life? Just then, a rideshare vehicle arrived at the entrance of her community. Shen Mingzhi grabbed her bag and exited the car. As the door shut, she leaned through the lowered window to bid farewell to her friend. Once you arrive home, remember to message me. I'm off now. Understood. You're so tedious, her friend retorted. One cannot perish, for calamity lingers for a millennium, she jested about herself. A week passed. While on her way to South University for some errands, Shen Mingzhi cast a few glances at the nearby outdoor basketball court. Under the scorching midday sun, the air was suffused with oppressive heat, and the court lay abandoned. The engineering building, a recent addition to the campus, offered a stark contrast with its robust air conditioning, creating a dichotomy between the exterior and interior worlds. Coincidentally, it was the week of midterm examinations, classrooms were teeming with students, and even the corridors were populated with several individuals fervently cramming. This familiar yet alien scene perpetually witnesses students enduring the trials of exam week. Shen Mingzhi took a detour. The T area connected the faculty offices and the student learning zone, and she kept her gaze straight ahead. Thus, she missed spotting a fourth-year student in the T area, visibly worn by the torment of her thesis, absently sipping coffee while lost in thought, until she finally caught a glimpse of Shen Mingzhi. After she passed, Yang Fan suddenly recalled something and slapped his thigh with vigor. As Zhao Qigong lifted his coffee, a sudden blow struck his thigh, causing him to wince in pain and nearly spill the drink. Suppressing his anger, he exclaimed, "What on earth is wrong with you? Don't you have your own thigh to hit?" Yang Fan, unrepentant, replied with confidence, "If you hit mine, I would certainly feel it." Zhao Qigong took a deep breath, rolled up his sleeves, and prepared to retaliate. Yang Fan promptly backed down, shifting the topic. "I just saw a woman, incredibly beautiful." Zhao Qigong was only inclined to punch him, retorting, "What does that have to do with me?" Yang Fan continued, "She seems to be the sister of Meng, the campus heartthrob." Zhao Qigong paused, considering if this was the sister Meng had shown interest in. Yang Fan corrected him, "Meng hasn't admitted to being interested. It's merely our assumption." Zhao Qigong chuckled, picking up his phone with a knowing look. "Want to find out if he is interested? It's simple. Just send a message to test the waters." Yang Fan scratched his head, asking, "What should I say?" Zhao Qigong suggested, "Meng, I saw your sister." Meng Xiang replied with a question mark. Zhao Qigong clarified, "Not your biological sister, but that stunning beauty on the basketball court." Yang Fan added, "I can attest. She looked even more beautiful than the last time we met." The two sent a drooling emoji simultaneously. Meng Xiang fell silent. Yang Fan, puzzled, wondered, "Why isn't he responding?" Zhao Qigong, understanding the situation, remarked, "You fool, he has undoubtedly gone to chat with that sister. What a perfect excuse. A splendid reason to meet." Yang Fan nodded, then suddenly realized and angrily retorted, "You're the fool. I'm your father." As Zhao Qi mentioned, Meng Xiang indeed engaged in a conversation with Shen Mingzhi. Upon opening the chat window, he remained silent for a moment before typing, "I believe I saw you at our school." After sending the message, a prolonged wait ensued. Meng Xiang inquired, "How did you end up at our school?" Shen Mingzhi responded, "Did I not mention it?" Meng Xiang pressed, "What?" Shen Mingzhi revealed, "I am having an affair with Lu Yanqi." Meng Xiang retorted, "You're insane." It was rare to hear him curse, prompting Shen Mingzhi to chuckle. Across the desk, Lu Yanqi tapped his fingers on the table, reminding her, "Keep your voice down. Hong Do is still asleep." Hong Do referred to Lu Yanqi's wife, Sun Sui, who was dozing on the sofa in the office. Intriguingly, she also held the position of Shen Mingzhi's assistant homeroom teacher during university. The intertwining of their fates was truly remarkable. However, it was only after the couple announced their marriage certificate on social media that Shen Mingzhi became aware of this connection. Lowering her voice, Shen Mingzhi apologized. Lu Yanqi's gaze remained fixated on the computer screen, evidently engrossed in researching wedding venue arrangements. Yet his demeanor was so serious that it resembled academic inquiry. Shen Mingzhi lowered her head and continued her chat with Meng Xiang. She blinked and remarked, "Cursing reflects a lack of decorum." Meng Xiang countered, "Is line considered more cultured?" Shen Mingzhi admitted, "My standards have always been quite low." Ultimately, it was Shen Mingzhi who alleviated the awkwardness. "Have you finished revising your paper?" Meng Xiang replied, "Just finished and sent it to my advisor." Shen Mingzhi asked, "So, do you have nothing to do now?" Meng Xiang responded, "Not really." Shen Mingzhi pressed, "What else are you busy with?" Meng Xiang answered, "Engaging in conversation with you." At a loss for a reply, Shen Mingzhi found herself at a loss. "The author has something to say, Meng Xiang. Since you have discerned my interest in you, I shall no longer feign indifference." Chapter 6. A clever idea. It is difficult to articulate Shen Mingzhi's feelings towards Meng Xiang. She wishes to establish a boundary with him, yet finds it hard to relinquish their connection, convinced that their exchanges are merely casual conversations devoid of any impropriety. Their dialogues are utterly innocent, lacking any insinuations. However, Meng Xiang's words fell into the stillness like a stone cast into stagnant water, creating ripples that reverberate. People often prefer to establish a personal boundary, as if crossing it were akin to transgressing divine law, leading to self-imposed condemnation. Yet, such boundaries appear to be subjective. It is not merely the other party's infringement that relaxes one's limits, but rather an internal shift that blurs the lines between them, transforming them into fragile, translucent bubbles that burst at the slightest touch. Shen Mingzhi inquired, "What I mean is, aside from chatting with me, Do you have other matters to attend to? Meng Xiang replied. No, I am singularly devoted. A statement laden with double standards, a twofold achievement. Shen Mingzhi could perceive the taut line between them gradually loosening. This line, now slack and pliable, merely had to exist. As long as it remained uncrossed, she reassured herself. Thus, she smiled gently and continued the conversation. What a coincidence. I feel the same. After sending her message, she paused for a brief moment before extending an olive branch. However, I would like to take a pause in our conversation for now. As anticipated, Meng Xiang seized the olive branch, inquiring, Do you have something to attend to? Shen Mingzhi. Yes, it is quite hot, and I would like something cold to drink. Shen Mingzhi. As a student of Nanda, what would you recommend? It is best to be near the engineering building. On such a sweltering day, I have no desire to bask in the sun. She has made her intentions quite clear. And if Meng Xiang fails to seize this opportunity, she may as well be eliminated. Fortunately, Meng Xiang adeptly picked up on her hint. There is a specialized snow and ice shop on the 3rd floor of the engineering building. Shen Mingzhi feigned innocence, saying, Thank you, I shall go there shortly. Meng Xiang replied, I possess a card for that establishment, with a bit of money still on it. Shen Mingzhi, pretending not to understand, asked, Are you trying to show off? Meng Xiang continued, When do you plan to go eat? I shall cover the expenses. She then added, Somewhat unnecessarily. After all, I will graduate in a few days. Any unused funds would be of no consequence. Shen Mingzhi chuckled, her fingers playfully tapping on the screen. Indeed, she was finally catching on. What scheme is she concocting now? Lu Yanqi's voice echoed ominously from behind the computer screen. Do you have a camera set up behind the monitor? Shen Mingzhi inquired. I truly guessed correctly. She put away her phone and chose not to pursue that topic further. Rising, she cast a glance at Sun Sui, who was napping, then turned her gaze toward Lu Yanqi. In their elevated exchange, her demeanor was serene. Her smile reminiscent of the retreating, boisterous spring breeze. The wedding in July, right? I will attend. Please send the details to my phone. I have matters to attend to, so I must be off. Lu Yanqi asked, What matters? Shen Mingzhi paused at the door, turning around, her eyes curving into bright crescents. Can you not see? I am radiating an overwhelming aura of sisterly affection. Lu Yanqi remained noncommittal. The snow and ice shop is situated in the corridor, although the space is ample. It occupies a modest footprint to avoid disrupting the educational environment. There are a total of 6 tables arranged within. During the examination week, all 6 tables were occupied by students, predominantly young women. Shen Mingzhi was fortunate. Just as she approached, one table of girls vacated. As she brushed past them, she encountered a young man clad in a white cotton short-sleeve shirt. To be precise, he was more of a youth than a man. His features were strikingly handsome. His skin so pale it bordered on being sickly, nearly translucent under the sunlight, exuding a palpable aura of youthfulness. He halted before Shen Mingzhi. Here so soon? She inquired. Meng Xiang replied, I'm in the adjacent building. He gestured towards the window. Shen Mingzhi felt both belief and skepticism, yet, regardless of her doubts, his timely arrival delighted her. She had a distinct aversion to waiting for people, particularly men. Since he had arrived, they proceeded to the bar to order refreshments. The snow ice shop lived up to its name, offering solely 2 varieties, red bean snow ice and glutinous rice cake snow ice. Given its location within an academic building, one could hardly expect an extensive menu. Shen Mingzhi asked him, which one is more delectable? Meng Xiang answered, the glutinous rice cake. She turned her head in skepticism. Glutinous rice cake made into snow ice? Meng Xiang elaborated, think of it as a reference to mochi. Very well, Shen Mingzhi conceded. I'll have a serving of red bean snow ice. After placing her order, she met Meng Xiang's gaze and winked. You must usually indulge in glutinous rice cake. It's only fair to occasionally explore other flavors, don't you think? Meng Xiang looked down at her. I've never tried it. Shen Mingzhi pressed her lips together. Then how do you know it's delicious? Meng Xiang replied, my roommate mentioned it. She playfully tossed her hair and smiled. I assumed you brought a girl along to share this with, someone who might have told you. Meng Xiang fell silent for a few moments. My sister also finds rice cakes delicious, she remarked. Shen Mingzhi expressed a hint of regret. Had you mentioned earlier that Ning Ning enjoys rice cakes? I would have ordered some. Meng Xiang replied, you could always order another serving. After all, I have plenty of funds in my account. Shen Mingzhi countered. I cannot finish it alone. Meng Xiang shot her a sidelong glance. Am I not a person? Shen Mingzhi let out a teasing laugh. Do you understand what it implies when 2 individuals share the same dish? Meng Xiang fixed her with an unwavering gaze, remaining silent. It implies, Shen Mingzhi drawled theatrically, a susceptibility to Helicobacter pylori infection. A rather dreary statement. Shen Mingzhi paused for a few seconds before retorting, "Aren't you concerned about me carrying pathogens?" Meng Xiang inquired. "Do you?" Shen Mingzhi replied, "No." He then said, "Then that settles it." Before long, another serving of shaved ice arrived. To be fair, although the establishment offered a limited menu, the shaved ice was indeed delectable, rich in creamy flavor. The toppings were abundant. It wasn't merely a superficial layer, as one could dig deeper to uncover a bounty of red beans and rice cakes nestled within. As they indulged in their meal, Shen Mingzhi sensed the subtle gazes of other girls from nearby tables lingering on them. Lowering her head, she retrieved her phone. Shortly thereafter, Meng Xiang noticed his own phone vibrating on the table, a message popping up. It was from Shen Mingzhi. "So many girls are watching you." Meng Xiang, unfazed, replied, "Boring." Shen Mingzhi insisted, "Aren't you going to take a look? The girl to your right is quite stunning." Meng Xiang, take care to enjoy your meal." As he sent the message, Meng Xiang looked up to see Shen Mingzhi, who suddenly rose and moved to the seat beside him. With the distance between them diminished, Meng Xiang felt a tightening in his throat, and his breath became slightly dry. Once seated, Shen Mingzhi raised her gaze innocently and asked, "What's wrong?" Meng Xiang hesitated, and after a long pause, he shook his head and replied, "I saw." Chapter 7. I have thought of you in human interactions. The most crucial element is whether the other person can discern your ulterior motives through your gaze. Shen Mingzhi increasingly found her conversations with Meng Xiang to be quite intriguing. Indeed, it was a conversation akin to playfully teasing a cat during moments of leisure. They quickly devoured 2 bowls of shaved ice, finishing them in no time. Leaning back on the sofa, Shen Mingzhi sighed. "My car has been sitting in the sun for nearly 2 hours. It must feel like a steamer inside." At times, Meng Xiang displayed a lack of romantic sensitivity, offering her a practical suggestion. "You should turn on the air conditioning now. It shouldn't be as hot when you go back later." After a brief silence, Meng Xiang remained quiet, intently gazing at her. Upon noticing, Shen Mingzhi did not shy away but met his gaze, feeling quite amused. "Why are you staring at me?" she inquired. Meng Xiang shook his head. "It's nothing." After a moment, he asked, "What about you and Lu Yinqi?" Still entangled in this question, Shen Mingzhi candidly responded, "He is my cousin." Meng Xiang's expression remained neutral. There was no relief from uncovering the truth, nor was there surprise. His eyes, as calm as a still pond, flickered briefly as he asked, "Have you resolved matters with him?" Having finished, she asked, "Are you really going?" The addition of the word really caught Shen Mingzhi's attention, as if she were seeking a fault. What does it mean to really leave? Unlike her cunning eyes, Meng Xiang's gaze was remarkably clear, devoid of any ulterior motives, as he spoke with a refreshing candor. "If you're not in a hurry to leave, why not stay a little longer? The sun is quite intense at the moment. I can turn on the air conditioning now and head down later." She echoed his words back to him. Yet, truthfully, she was feeling rather lethargic. The prank had come to an end. Shen Mingzhi smiled, pondering what she might do here. "What do you usually do when you're bored?" Meng Xiang furrowed his brow in contemplation. Soon after, Shen Mingzhi heard him ask, "Are you feeling bored right now?" She shrugged, "Aren't you?" To which he replied with a firm denial, "Not at all." Shen Mingzhi tilted her head in confusion. Meng Xiang explained, "When someone is with you, how could you possibly feel bored?" She retorted, "But it seems we don't have many topics to discuss." It was then she realized that Meng Xiang was not as taciturn as he appeared. Perhaps this was merely a facade of adulthood. His desire to communicate varied from person to person, and he could converse more than she had anticipated. "What do you talk about with your friends? I should be able to join in." The term friends he used was as clear as his crystalline eyes, reflecting his essence. However, a relationship that is too transparent cannot progress further. Shen Mingzhi relished the purity of her relationship with Meng Xiang. After a moment of reflection, she remarked, "Let us discuss the recent handbag purchases, the gossip surrounding our mutual acquaintances, and our current endeavors, as well as what we shall dine on later." Meng Xiang sat upright, contemplating. "It appears that our only mutual friend is my sister. Then let us speak of Meng Ning. Each individual possesses a unique perception and interpretation of things. Even our shared friend Meng Ning presents differing images in their eyes." This topic could sustain an extensive conversation. From the aspects of Meng Ning's childhood that Meng Xiang is familiar with, to those of her adulthood that Shen Mingzhi has come to know, the dialogue flourished. Vibrant as the sunlight streaming through the window, initially blindingly bright, gradually transforming into a gentle orange glow as time meandered on, reminiscent of the tender gaze of a beloved, lingering like the hues of a sunset. Observing the dimming light outside, Shen Mingzhi inquired, surprised, "What time is it?" Meng Xiang replied, "Almost 5 o'clock." Shen Mingzhi remarked, "Time passes swiftly." Meng Xiang nodded. The students surrounding them had already changed several times, now gathering their belongings, preparing to head to the cafeteria for a meal. Meng Xiang suggested, "Shall we dine at the cafeteria? The food at our school's cafeteria is quite commendable." Shen Mingzhi responded, "I believe I still owe you 2 meals." This elicited a downward glance from him, his tone cold yet resigned. "If it is a treat, I cannot accept cafeteria food." Though his words bore an air of superiority, they did not evoke discomfort. It seemed that inviting him to dine required a notably formal occasion. Shen Mingzhi shrugged. "I did not imply that I would treat you to cafeteria food. You are being rather petty." Meng Xiang replied, "Because your credibility is exceedingly low." She was perplexed. "What have I done wrong that has led to such a deep misunderstanding between us?" He let out an ambiguous chuckle, leaving Shen Mingzhi to ruminate over her transgressions as they walked to the cafeteria, pondering where she might have wronged him. Suddenly, she recalled the instance when she had promised to treat him to dinner the following week, only to completely forget about it on the designated day. In the realm of adult social interactions, suggesting a future meal is merely a formal politeness. To her surprise, Meng Xiang had taken it to heart. Upon this realization, Shen Mingzhi called out his name. "Meng Xiang, were you waiting for me to message you that day?" Without halting his stride, he glanced at her with a cool demeanor and replied indifferently, "No." Shen Mingzhi's tone lifted. "Really?" Meng Xiang remained silent. "Even if it was just for a second. Did you think of me?" Shen Mingzhi stepped in front of him, walking backward with her hands clasped behind her, speaking deliberately, "For the next week, I will invite you to dinner every day." The wind seemed to still, the distant sunset casting its lingering glow, a thick, enigmatic orange light enveloping his face. In the depths of his clear eyes, Shen Mingzhi perceived the shimmering reflections of twilight. Ultimately, amidst this back-and-forth contest, she heard the cheers of triumph ringing in her ears. The author has a message. Please support my dear friend by sharing this piece. Author Deep Sea and Moonlight. Book title, Even Hedgehogs Can Be Soft. Synopsis, by chance. She finds herself staying at his home, and after several heart-fluttering moments, Lin Shi's hedgehog-like nature instinctively causes her to retreat time and again. After a night of intoxication, the jealousy hidden deep within her mind blurs her resolve, leading her to initiate a tentative kiss. Later, she could only recall the taste of love as a blend of champagne and red wine. Only after they were together did she realize that she was an unquiet sleeper, often pushing him to the edge of the bed and even calling his name in her dreams. She discovered that there were countless activities to enjoy on their days off, like snuggling in his embrace and watching a movie 3 times without feeling bored. It became evident that one could truly see oneself reflected in his eyes. Chapter 8. Easy to soothe dinner was consumed in the school cafeteria. The 5th cafeteria boasted 2 floors, with a cooking area on the 2nd. Meng Xiang treated Shen Mingzhi to the most extravagant dish in the eyes of all students. The dry pot bullfrog, priced at an astonishing 18 yuan, and the dry pot cauliflower, costing 12 yuan. Nearly 3 years after graduating from university, Shen Mingzhi had almost forgotten the remarkably low prices on campus. As Meng Xiang swiped his card, he overheard a heartfelt exclamation. Everything at the school was astonishingly inexpensive. Meng Xiang inquired, "Aside from food, what else is there?" Shen Mingzhi pointed at him, saying, "University students." Even though graduates often secure prestigious and well-paying jobs, during their university years, they were the most economical labor force. He smirked in agreement, acknowledging the truth of her statement. After their meal, the two strolled to the playground adjacent to the cafeteria, whimsically calling it a post-meal digesting walk. The nighttime playground was far livelier than during the day, with students jogging and exercising, while others lounged on the grass, chatting and socializing. Couples nestled together in the stands, sharing tender moments, all amidst a vibrant atmosphere of youthful exuberance. Meng Xiang smiled, while Shen Mingzhi self-deprecatingly remarked, "But during my studies, I only came to the playground for physical education." Meng Xiang inquired of her, "Have you never come with your roommates?" Shen Mingzhi replied, "During my university years, I did not reside in the dormitories. I applied for off-campus accommodation." This was indeed something he was unaware of. However, he had always failed to comprehend Shen Mingzhi. On that day, the conclusion saw Meng Xiang escorting Shen Mingzhi to her vehicle. As she settled into the car and lowered the window, she remarked, "So, I shall take my leave now?" Standing outside, The disparity in their heights compelled him to avert his gaze momentarily. Her bangs cascaded gently, presenting a demeanor of utmost gentleness as he cautioned her. Be careful on the road. After a brief pause, he added, message me upon your arrival home. How considerate of you, she replied with a radiant smile. Only to follow it with, understood. As they parted, Shen Mingzhi glanced through the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of his youthful silhouette. The night swayed around them, and he stood motionless, akin to a stone longing for his wife. The very metaphor made Shen Mingzhi involuntarily smile once more. She belatedly realized that she had laughed more times today than she had throughout the entire past week. Upon her return home, she first indulged in a refreshing shower before messaging Meng Xiang with the simple words, I have arrived. Shen Mingzhi noticed her phone remained still for over 10 seconds before a new message appeared. Meng Xiang wrote, you mentioned treating me to a meal today. Does that still hold true? Reclining on her bed in a comfortable position, she replied, of course, it does. 1 meal a day? Meng Xiang inquired, which meal? She answered, lunch or dinner, either is fine. Meng Xiang countered, breakfast. Shen Mingzhi placed her hand on her forehead. That option isn't available. Meng Xiang responded, do you not eat breakfast? She remarked, I only rose at 10 this morning. Are you certain you wish to have breakfast at 10:30? Meng Xiang, embodying a somewhat old-fashioned ethos, believed that the day's plans are best laid in the morning, asserting that a hearty breakfast sets a positive tone for the entire day. Shen Mingzhi sighed. No wonder I feel like a lunatic all day. Meng Xiang interjected, do not speak nonsense. As their conversation drew to a close, Meng Xiang, displaying her understanding nature, suggested, everything should proceed in a manner that suits you best, whether lunch or dinner, it is entirely up to you. Shen Mingzhi, who responded better to gentle persuasion than to forceful commands, replied, no, dear sister, tomorrow I intend to rise at 8 to treat you to breakfast. Meng Xiang countered, there is no need to force it. Shen Mingzhi insisted, but how can this be considered forcing? She continued, I must restore my credibility. I do not wish to be perceived as a deceiver in your eyes. Heaven knows how long it had been since Shen Mingzhi had witnessed the morning sunlight at 8 o'clock. Her routine mirrored that of her friends studying abroad, retiring to bed around 2 or 3 in the morning and awakening around 10. To rise at 8, she set 6 alarms, their cacophony pulsating against her temples. As she applied her makeup, she caught a glimpse of her haggard reflection in the mirror, slathering on concealer as if it were free. In this age, it seemed far easier to be a deceiver. Upholding one's word was truly exhausting. Shen Mingzhi opted for the trendiest water makeup, a look so subtle that it appeared almost barefaced to the male eye. Yet, who possesses a flawless visage devoid of even the slightest pore? Merely a trick to beguile men. As she descended the stairs, she took out her phone to message Meng Xiang. Are you awake? Meng Xiang replied, yes. Shen Mingzhi continued, I have arrived at your school. I should be there in about 10 minutes. Meng Xiang responded, all right, drive carefully on your way. They had agreed to meet outside the cafeteria for dinner last night. From a distance, Shen Mingzhi spotted Meng Xiang. The tall young man was undeniably eye-catching, more radiant than the sunlight filtering through the branches. Shen Mingzhi came to a halt before him, unable to suppress a yawn. Do you know what time I went to bed last night? She asked. At what time? He inquired. After 3, she replied, calculating that she had barely slept for 5 hours. Shen Mingzhi refused to be the kind of person who seeks emotional gratification through self-pity. By voicing her sacrifice, she intended to evoke a sense of guilt or perhaps sympathy in him. A child who cries receives candy, while one who swallows their bitterness is destined for a lonely life. As her words lingered in the air, she indeed discerned a flicker of remorse in Meng Xiang's expression. His throat felt dry and constricted. I said, everything should be done in a way that makes you comfortable, he murmured. The way the tall young man lowered his gaze, seemingly burdened, tugged at her heartstrings, as if the fault lay with her. Shen Mingzhi realized she might be overindulging in her affections. Otherwise, why would she reach out and gently ruffle his hair at the back of his head? I, too, wish to awaken later, but my mind is preoccupied with the thought of dining with a male university student. You know, I'm surrounded by middle-aged, greasy men, and the mere thought of escaping them to share a meal with you has kept me awake all night with joy. Meng Xiang detected a playful undertone in her words, understanding that she was trying to cheer him up. Yet, her jest resonated in his still groggy mind, transforming into sincerity that he could not suppress. He proved to be even more amenable than she had anticipated. A mere smile from her would lead him to surrender unconditionally. Moreover, She confessed that her mind was entirely preoccupied with thoughts of dining with him, to the extent that she was unable to sleep throughout the night, filled with joy. It turned out that it was not just he who had a restless night. She had too. The author muses, who does not admire an innocent male college student? Chapter 9. The Game of Emotions. For an entire week, Meng Xiang and Shen Mingzhi dined together, except for the first day when they shared breakfast. The rest of their meetings were for dinner. Although Meng Xiang was a fourth-year student, he was already engaged in an internship. Each time Shen Mingzhi accompanied him for dinner, she would endure the congestion of the evening rush hour. The gridlock traffic did not diminish her patience. In fact, while waiting at traffic lights, she would often hum a tune. However, she recognized that the situation was far from ideal, yet she took no remedial action. As the week of promises drew to a close, they finished their final dinner together. Suddenly, a torrential downpour ensued outside. The summer rain came with ferocity, accompanied by howling winds that bent the street trees, while plastic bags danced chaotically on the ground, rendering the world akin to a scene from a disaster film. Initially, they believed the rain would soon subside, but after spending an hour browsing in the mall, the downpour showed no signs of easing. To their dismay, the mall's intercom suddenly announced the emergency closure of the underground parking garage. Complaints erupted around them as Shen Mingzhi and Meng Xiang exchanged glances. After a brief silence, Shen Mingzhi swiftly proposed, "Shall we go to my house for a while?" Her home was just across the street from the mall. Meng Xiang replied, "Sounds good." The rain outside poured relentlessly, and Shen Mingzhi always kept a compact umbrella in her car. This narrow single-person umbrella could hardly accommodate two without prompting an intimate closeness. Given the height difference, it was naturally Meng Xiang who held the umbrella, his arms stretched across the space between them. Shen Mingzhi wished to maintain a courteous distance, but as she strained to keep her distance, half of her body became drenched. A chilly gust of wind swept in, and as she stepped outside, Meng Xiang froze. Shen Mingzhi wrapped her arms around his, using both hands. "The rain is too heavy. Come a little closer, lest you get soaked," she remarked, glancing up at him with an air of nonchalance, her demeanor strikingly natural. It was difficult to incite any wild imaginings. Yet, the side of Meng Xiang that leaned closer to her felt numb. Fortunately, the brisk wind subdued the blood rushing within him, concealing his unusual sensations within the night and the neon haze of the rain, unbeknownst to anyone. In the end, Shen Mingzhi was soaked through, while Meng Xiang fared even worse, his damp clothes clinging to his skin. She had noticed back at the school basketball court that Meng Xiang was merely slender, not frail. The hem of his shirt lifted, revealing defined abdominal muscles, half of the spring light unveiled, while the other half was captured by Shen Mingzhi tonight. The thin fabric of his summer shirt, drenched, clung to his body, outlining his powerful chest. "Damn it," she cursed inwardly. Unable to restrain herself, she muttered again, "So damn sexy." Although Shen Mingzhi had grown up with divorced parents, they adhered to the philosophy that love could be absent, but wealth was essential. Thus, her allowance had never been scant. Her parents paid her no heed, ultimately leaving her under the care of her aunt. Shen Mingzhi's demeanor is significantly shaped by her aunt's influence. The aunt once imparted to her that nothing is destined to remain by your side for a lifetime. Save for money. All that brings you joy will eventually depart, except for wealth. The aunt is a remarkably refined egoist, yet she treats Shen Mingzhi with great kindness. When Shen Mingzhi was accepted into university, her aunt gifted her a lavish apartment, a spacious three-bedroom unit of 150 square meters. Shen Mingzhi even merged one of the bedrooms with the living room, creating an illusion of greater space. However, as Meng Xiang stood in the living room, Shen Mingzhi suddenly felt the area was too confining. Her gaze had nowhere to wander except to him. Parched and uneasy, she cleared her throat to shift the conversation. "Your clothes are all wet. Would you like to take a shower?" Meng Xiang ran his fingers through his hair, exuding a carefree demeanor. "I have no clothes to change into." Shen Mingzhi replied, "I can fetch you a set of clothes." Meng Xiang's eyes inquired, "Your clothes?" Shen Mingzhi chuckled, "Do you think my clothes would fit you?" With that, she turned and entered the bedroom. Before long, she emerged, holding a set of loungewear, men's pajamas sent by the brand. "I just checked the size. It's for someone 185 tall. That should fit you, right?" "Oh, I'm 188. A gentle warmth flickered in Meng Xiang's lowered gaze. "I didn't ask how tall you were. My apologies. I assumed your earlier remark was a jab at my height, not being 185. Shen Mingzhi let out a cold snort, remarking that indeed, a man over 6 feet tall could still proclaim his height, even if he were on his last breath. Meng Xiang casually replied, likening it to how a woman, even in her final moments, would ensure to erase her chat history with her close friends before departing. Meng Xiang then proceeded to freshen up, while Shen Mingzhi followed suit. However, one utilized the bathroom outside, and the other, the one in the bedroom. By the time Shen Mingzhi emerged, Meng Xiang was already lounging on the sofa in the living room, engrossed in her phone. The sound of the game was faint, only discernible upon closer approach. "What game are you playing?" Shen Mingzhi inquired, blinking in surprise. "Is League of Legends available as a mobile game now?" During her high school days, she would spend weekends gaming with her classmates, but after graduation, they all went their separate ways, discovering new amusements in college, and gaming gradually diminished. After graduation, the burden of daily work left her breathless, leaving little room for thoughts of newly released games. "By the way," Meng Xiang interjected, "your phone has been buzzing incessantly. It seems someone is trying to reach you." At this, Shen Mingzhi picked up her phone, which lay on the coffee table. It wasn't buzzing continuously, as there were only 3 notifications. She opened them to find 3 voice messages, all from the same person, Sui Yu. Initially intending to convert the voice messages to text, she inadvertently pressed the play button instead. To say the least, Sui Yu's voice was delightful, rich and resonant, imbued with a carefree laughter that danced through the phone's speaker. Low and inviting. "What are you doing? Are you free to hang out tomorrow? Don't ignore me, Shen Mingzhi." Within the confines of the smartphone screen, the animated character continued to wield its weapon, yet beyond that digital realm, the 2 hands clasping the device had ceased their motions. Meng Xiang's lips were tightly pressed together, his focus entirely fixated on Shen Mingzhi. A smile graced her face as her fingers danced rapidly across the keyboard, sending messages that zipped away with a swift sound. The notifications were relentless. Time slipped by unnoticed until Meng Xiang heard the disheartening chime of defeat. He had lost. He was a loser. Raising his gaze, he refrained from looking towards Shen Mingzhi and instead turned his attention to the outside world. The night sky, heavy with darkness, was punctuated by rain that fragmented the lights. Mirroring the shattering of his heart, which lay in pieces upon the ground, mingled with dirt, cascading into the gutter. The youthful radiance of his face was suddenly shrouded in a pallid hue, dimmed and desolate. "Is he your boyfriend?" A voice unexpectedly punctured the silence in the room. Shen Mingzhi replied, "No." Meng Xiang pressed on, "A romantic interest?" It was then that she sensed his unease, reluctantly diverting her gaze from the screen to him. Her expression a mixture of amusement and curiosity. "Why would you assume he's a romantic interest?" Meng Xiang's eyes bore into her. Unwavering, "Then why do you seem so happy chatting with him?" Shen Mingzhi countered, "I also enjoy our conversations. Does that make you my romantic interest?" A sudden stillness enveloped the room. Meng Xiang's eyes, dark yet luminous, fixated intently on Shen Mingzhi. She found herself momentarily captivated by the beauty of his gaze. With its delicate contours and subtle double eyelid, the outer corners of his eyes flaring like a fan. Her eyes, seemingly imbued with a hint of mirth, nevertheless exuded an air of cool detachment, devoid of emotion, akin to a sheet of transparent plastic. In that moment, however, they resembled an overturned palette, a myriad of colors layered upon one another, complex to the point of being ineffable. Time drifted by, stretching like an interminable few hours or contracting into mere seconds. Shen Mingzhi heard Meng Xiang's light retort, "Isn't it?" Shen Mingzhi's expression remained unchanged, the smile at the corners of her lips retaining an elegant curve. "Meng Xiang, do you know? I used to indulge in gaming too, specifically the very game you play, the PC version. However, as I grew older, I abandoned that game for others." "What games?" Shen Mingzhi playfully tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, her smile exuding a captivating charm. "Adults, of course, engage in games of the heart." Author's note, Chapter 10, Isn't This My Ancestor? That night, as Meng Xiang departed in the rain, Shen Mingzhi made no effort to retain him. Thoughtfully, she offered him an umbrella, cautioning him to tread carefully on his way. It was not that Shen Mingzhi wished to let Meng Xiang go. It was simply that, at that moment, their ability to coexist in the same space had become untenable. Shen Mingzhi excelled at maintaining a facade of indifference, often feigning ignorance. She could easily rationalize her closeness to Meng Xiang by attributing it to his relation to Meng Ning, believing that her kindness stemmed from a sense of familial affection. Yet, Meng Xiang, unable to contain himself, rent asunder the fragile veneer of tranquility that held them together. The room, once filled with sound, descended into a chilling silence. Shen Mingzhi sighed, a solitary sound devoid of excessive emotion. In the days that followed, she never encountered Meng Xiang again. The lives of two individuals are seldom aligned. In a city of such vastness, a mere encounter becomes an arduous task. Yet, Meng Xiang has not entirely vanished from Shen Mingzhi's perception. For each time she updates her social media, he can always spot her familiar avatar amidst the myriad of likes. It is as though the events of that night have been cast aside. Shen Mingzhi typically posts once a week, a testament to her existence and her thriving life. However, her recent updates have become somewhat enigmatic. Occasionally, she shares a song. At other times, she reveals her meals or her shopping escapades. Yet, most frequently, she posts selfies, pictures of herself in basketball attire, reflections captured in elevator mirrors, and dining moments, all invariably receiving Meng Xiang's approving likes. One evening, as he commuted home from work, Meng Xiang stumbled upon a song shared by Shen Mingzhi. Despite the sweltering summer night, she chose to listen to Spring Breeze Blows. The lyrics resonate. When the spring breeze blows, whom do I remember? It matters not, as long as I have no regrets. When the spring breeze blows, whom do I forget? How many years has it been since my last tear? Will you retreat from my pursuit? Is it right or wrong? No wonder I feel a bit weary. Meng Xiang's throat involuntarily tightened. He revisited Shen Mingzhi's post, where she had accompanied the song with words of her own. Will the people we meet in spring reunite in summer? Under the dim glow of the streetlights. The clouds lingered thickly, making time feel particularly sluggish. Meng Xiang gripped the steering wheel tighter, pressing down hard on the accelerator. He must not indulge in sentimental fantasies. She has encountered many in spring, and he might not even rank among them. As the updates on her social media feed increased, it began to feel like a mere exercise in seeking validation. Yet, in truth, this pursuit of acknowledgement had ultimately reached the attention of her aunt. One weekend, Shen Mingzhi was roused from her slumber by the insistent ringing of her mobile phone. With a nasally voice, she answered, "Aunt, come over for dinner tonight." "No." She instinctively declined, recalling the last occasion. "It was just me and your uncle, no one else." Ironically, the term "no one else" referred to Shen Mingzhi's mother. Unfortunately, the elders favored such attire, which appeared dignified and ladylike. In private, Shen Mingzhi's fashion sense was eclectic, yet she held a particular aversion to anything resembling Chanel. Nevertheless, her wardrobe boasted a collection of Miu Miu garments along with an array of Chanel-inspired outfits. Those who find themselves dependent on others often excel at playing roles. During her romantic escapades, Shen Mingzhi relished in the art of deceiving men, a skill honed over years of mastering the artifice of being demure in public. Upon arriving at the Zhou residence, she found her aunt seated on the living room sofa, her ruby earrings glistening prominently. Shen Mingzhi approached her, inquiring, "New purchase?" Her aunt replied, "Your uncle gifted these to me. Aren't they lovely?" After pondering for a moment, Shen Mingzhi quipped, "They must have cost quite a bit, right?" Her aunt gestured with her hand, confirming that it was indeed a considerable sum. With a hand covering her mouth, she smiled, her face radiating joy. Numbers are merely illusory. What matters is his thoughtfulness. A shiver of discomfort ran down Shen Mingzhi's spine. "And where is uncle?" "He went to the Jiang family," her aunt responded. "He mentioned he spotted Zhou Yang and wanted to pay him a visit. My aunt and her husband are in their second marriage, and he has a son named Zhou Yang, who is 2 years older than Shen Mingzhi and was her senior during her middle school years. In a blended family, discord is often present, and the Zhou family is no exception. However, the strained relationship between Zhou Yang and his father existed even before my aunt joined the family. Zhou Yang is notorious within his circle as a spoiled rich kid, living a carefree and unruly life, indulging in activities that displease his elders. While some experience a rebellious phase during their youth, Zhou Yang's rebellion seems to span a lifetime. The first encounter between Shen Mingzhi and Zhou Yang occurred at my aunt and uncle's wedding. At 17, he basked in the sunlight, his charming peach blossom eyes radiating an alluring charm. Shen Mingzhi was entranced, her mind consumed by the thought of his otherworldly beauty. Zhou Yang bore the appearance of a timeless figure, one who would never age. Even at 26 or 27, he still looked like he was in his early 20s. Being extraordinary, he was undoubtedly trouble, engaging in mischief daily, fighting one day, skipping class to visit an internet CAF the next, and soon after, brawling with a rival. His father was often left exasperated, wielding either a broom or a feather duster in frustration. Throughout the year, Zhou Yang's body bore the marks of bruises, whether from his father's reprimands or from altercations with outsiders. During her year-long stay at their home, Shen Mingzhi had to maintain the facade of a dutiful younger sister, tending to her step-cousin's wounds by purchasing ointments for his injuries. In truth, Zhou Yang was quite amiable. Despite his stepmother marrying his father's sister's daughter, he never displayed any hostility towards them. A person who seemed to be at odds with the world showed no animosity towards the two of them. In fact, he would accompany Shen Mingzhi to and from school every day. Zhou Yang would often grumble about how heavy Shen Mingzhi's backpack was, wondering how many love letters it contained. Yet he selflessly assisted her in carrying it. He would complain impatiently about the appeal of milk tea, only to nonchalantly present her with her favorite drink hours later, claiming he had merely passed by and bought it on a whim. At the tender age of 15, Shen Mingzhi occasionally pondered how wonderful it would be if Zhou Yang were truly her brother. A boy who frequently engaged in fights, yet was strikingly handsome, academically lacking, yet undeniably attractive, surrounded by admirers, yet all due to his captivating looks. But what ultimately led to their estrangement? How could it have possibly unraveled? Despite lacking any blood relation, they shared an intimacy that was palpable. The youthful pair would gaze at one another, their eyes so intertwined that one could almost feel the threads of connection. An indescribable sentiment surged between them, akin to a volcano that hints at an impending eruption. It was Shen Mingzhi's aunt who sensed this latent tension. She remained relatively unfazed, her gentle eyes brimming with compassion as they looked upon Shen Mingzhi. Rather than advising her to maintain distance from Zhou Yang, she spoke in a soft, almost imperceptible tone. Zhi, do you know why I meticulously chose your uncle among countless options? It is because he listens to me in all matters. In this household, aside from Zhou Yang's affairs, I have a say in everything else. Shen Mingzhi furrowed her brow, gazing at her aunt in confusion. But do you believe Zhou Yang is the type to heed his girlfriend's words? Her aunt smiled. And do you think he will always listen to you throughout his life? Shen Mingzhi felt her eyelids fluttering rapidly. She opened her mouth to deny it, yet her vocal cords emitted no sound, trembling helplessly. After a long pause, she stated, Zhou Yang and I are not in a romantic relationship. Her aunt replied, Yes, I am aware, Zhi. You have always been quite sensible. Indeed. Shen Mingzhi had consistently demonstrated her understanding, rendering her aunt's further remarks unnecessary as she instinctively distanced herself from Zhou Yang. As for Shen Mingzhi herself, like Zhou Yang, her life was brimming with vibrant experiences that surged towards her, leaving her with no time to recall their tender exchanges. A love that had come to an inconclusive end, after many years, had become inconsequential. In their household, it was just the two of them, yet her aunt still arranged for a lavish spread of dishes. She explained that it was an apology. She would no longer take it upon herself to summon Shen Mingzhi's mother. Holding her chopsticks, Shen Mingzhi meticulously counted the grains of rice in her bowl, feigning indifference. I do not hold it against you. After all, she is your sister. When she makes a request, it is difficult to refuse. I believe she came to show concern for you. She indeed came to express her concern, albeit in a rather peculiar manner, first berating me for my current circumstances, then commanding me to secure a stable job. Her aunt sighed. I truly never imagined she would. It's all right. I have not taken it to heart, Shen Mingzhi reassured her. Well, you should manage your own affairs and not be swayed by others' opinions. Understood? Understood. As the meal neared its conclusion, a commotion arose at the entrance. Chapter 11. Happy Graduation. No sooner had the words left his mouth than a dull pain struck the back of Zhou Yang's head. He grimaced in agony. Dad, I'm your only son. Could you perhaps show a little restraint? Zhou's father shot him a glare. I'll rip your mouth apart one of these days. Zhou Yang merely chuckled nonchalantly. The most awkward presence in the room was undoubtedly Shen Mingzhi, who, having no ties to the Zhou family, had somehow become Zhou Yang's revered ancestor. In truth, during the years of their camaraderie, Zhou Yang had indeed treated her like royalty, buying her popsicles in the heat and chasing after her to ensure she wore long johns in the chill. Shen Mingzhi was notoriously vain, insisting on bare legs even in the depths of winter, while Zhou Yang himself, despite donning tattered pants, would still grab her by the nape and enforce her to wear long johns. A girl's legs must not be exposed to the cold. What if they get frostbite and you end up with chronic cold legs? Shen Mingzhi would lament. Zhou Yang, however, laughed it off, boasting, can we be compared? I possess 3 legs. If one gets frostbitten, I still have 2 left. At that moment, Shen Mingzhi's gaze would invariably dart toward the well-concealed 3rd leg, displaying an unabashed boldness that rivaled Zhou Yang's own. She would even copy the Risku films hidden on his computer onto her own, quipping with a mischievous tone. What if the one in the middle gets frostbite? That would surely hinder your chances with the ladies. How could a 15-year-old girl speak such audacious words without a hint of blush or fluttering heart? In a fit of irritation, Zhou Yang stuffed a pair of long johns into her mouth, exclaiming, "You truly are my ancestor." From that moment on, he genuinely began to refer to her as ancestor. Their relationship had grown distant over the years, and hearing that term again brought a peculiar mix of nostalgia and strangeness to Shen Mingzhi. Zhou Yang tilted his head and smiled at her, still bearing that carefree demeanor. The moonlight illuminated him, casting a serene glow, while the ivy in the backyard remained lush and verdant, thriving as it always had, as if time had stood still, as if the rift of those intervening years had vanished, as if they were perpetually 15 or 16. Yet, the intimate conversations they once shared were long gone. In the backyard, Shen Mingzhi sat languidly on a swing, while Zhou Yang squatted by the fish pond, teasing the fish, occasionally glancing her way. The moonlight sparkled in his eyes, shimmering like a constellation. "What have you been busy with lately?" Shen Mingzhi inquired. "What else can I do?" "The same old routine," he replied, "spending all day in bars, as usual." "Well, I have nothing pressing either. You know me. I steer clear of serious matters. How does one truly live their life? Everyone's become teachers. Is there still someone out there sweeping the streets?" His reasoning was whimsical and absurd, and in the past, Shen Mingzhi would have countered him with retorts. However, she understood that Zhou Yang was subtly urging her to disregard her mother's advice, to embrace the life she desired rather than the one her parents envisioned for her. Initially, she had felt a flutter of affection for him, but that youthful infatuation had long since dissipated into thin air. As she gently rocked back and forth on the swing, she pointed her toes to the ground and said, "Zhou Yang, may I ask you something?" Zhou Yang clapped his hands, shaking the bait from his grasp into the fish pond, without turning around. "What is it?" he inquired. Shen Mingzhi replied, "If you find yourself infatuated with someone you ought not to like, what would you do?" Zhou Yang abruptly turned, his expression one of disbelief. "Are you saying you've developed feelings for someone you shouldn't? Is that person married or in a relationship?" Shen Mingzhi retorted, "While one may engage in romance without a sense of morality, one must possess a modicum of shame. Are you out of your mind, Shen Mingzhi? He is single. Then why is he someone you shouldn't like?" In that fleeting moment, an unsettling thought surged through Zhou Yang's mind, causing his Adam's apple to falter and his breath to hitch, as if even his heartbeat had momentarily ceased. For there she was, tilting her head back, laughing as luminously as the moon, suddenly gripped by a sense of morality. Her best friend's younger brother. The sense of moral obligation crashed upon him, more overwhelming than a deluge. "I truly do not wish to feel this way, but how can I resist when he is so handsome, and looks at me with such innocence?" Shen Mingzhi managed to rein in her emotions. Yet the mere thought of Meng Xiang ignited a flame within her heart that threatened to consume her, leaving her inexplicably agitated. "Zhou Yang, how could you possibly court such a pure-hearted girl? Are you truly capable of it?" The matter of affection had nothing to do with him, yet it reignited the embers of feelings he had suppressed for years, though he managed to stifle them once more. "What makes it so difficult? The other party is single and an adult. Why should it be beyond my reach?" "Scoundrel," Shen Mingzhi assessed. "Oh, thank you for the compliment." Zhou Yang replied with a modest smile. Zhou Yang, with a subtle curiosity, intended to inquire about whom she had developed affections for. Shen Mingzhi appeared to engage in heartfelt discussions about emotions, yet she remained tight-lipped regarding the identity of that person, not uttering a single word about his name. He was younger than her, a brother figure, and their relationship bore a faint connection. Otherwise, she would not have felt a sense of moral obligation. Zhou Yang yearned to ask her, what about him? Did she ever grapple with the decision to distance herself from him? Such a beautiful countenance. He had rarely seen her frown. He always believed her vibrant face should forever wear a spirited smile. Therefore, regardless of how unreasonable her requests were, he would acquiesce. Yet now, she frowned for another man, her brows knitted tightly, her expression contorted with the inner turmoil of wanting to give up, yet feeling reluctant. Perhaps over the years, she had furrowed her brows for other men too, but he had never witnessed it so vividly as today. Upon parting, Zhou Yang casually remarked, "If you have nothing better to do, come over to my place for a drink. It's not worth it to mope around here over some man, Shen Mingzhi." Shen Mingzhi did not spare him a glance, displaying the same impatience as ever, letting out a heavy sigh, as if she could exhale the weight of the world. "You don't understand, Zhou Yang. Being straightforward is affection. It is the hesitance that constitutes love." Shen Mingzhi felt ensnared by that young lad, Meng Xiang. However, Meng Xiang was as uncommunicative as a block of wood, no matter what she posted in her social circle. He merely liked it and remained silent thereafter. Shen Mingzhi harbored suspicions that Meng Xiang had procured a software to artificially inflate likes on social media. Whenever someone posted on their moments, the software would spring into action, automatically bestowing likes upon those posts. Unable to endure any longer, one afternoon, she too shared a moment on her own social media. In that instant, she received a message from Meng Ning, who sent her a photograph accompanied by the words, "So handsome." The image depicted two individuals, Meng Ning's boyfriend, Jiang Zhizhou, and the very person whom Shen Mingzhi, with gritted teeth, had been cursing even during mundane tasks such as flushing the toilet, wishing to wash him away along with his existence. Yet, upon gazing at the photograph, the turmoil in Shen Mingzhi's heart melted away like spring rain. How could he be so strikingly handsome? She was not a naive girl sheltered within her ivory tower. She had dined with several of the entertainment industry's rising stars and often mused about the palpable chasm that separated celebrities from ordinary folk. However, such musings were fleeting. And once the meal concluded, she would seldom think of them again. Yet, Meng Xiang was different. His handsomeness was, how should one put it? It was profoundly genuine. He resembled the charismatic figures from her school days, the ones who drew throngs of admirers during breaks, their youthful allure captivating all. Despite his seemingly weary expression, he radiated the vigor of youth, and even a casual, indifferent glance from him could cause hearts to race. Shen Mingzhi pondered that perhaps she was simply nostalgic for her student days. However, upon reflection, she realized that none of the prominent figures from her school days could rival Meng Xiang's exceptional charm. In terms of appearance, setting aside figures like Jiang Zhizhou and He Siheng, even Zhou Yang, whom one encounters daily, surpasses Meng Xiang in looks. Zhou Yang possesses features that seem akin to a rare masterpiece sculpted by the hands of the creator over a century. When it comes to beauty, Meng Xiang simply cannot compete with Zhou Yang. Despite the array of handsome individuals surrounding her, Shen Mingzhi has never been swayed by them. Her affection for Zhou Yang blossomed rather belatedly, not solely due to his good looks, but rather a confluence of numerous factors. Zhou Yang's unwavering support for Shen Mingzhi, his attentive care for her, and even during a phase when Shen Mingzhi became enamored with pseudo-sibling romance literature, fervently shipping brother-sister love, ultimately leading her to project those feelings onto her own relationship with Zhou Yang. Consequently, Shen Mingzhi later contemplated that what she felt was perhaps not love, but merely a passing fancy. Her phone vibrated once more in her palm. Meng Ning. In the blink of an eye, Meng Xiang has graduated. To me, he still appears as a child. Meng Ning. Yet, I never imagined he has already reached the legal marriageable age. Shen Mingzhi raised an eyebrow. What? Do you wish for him to marry? Meng Ning. I wouldn't mind, but he isn't even willing to date anyone. Shen Mingzhi. I am quite curious. What if he were to date someone you disapprove of? Meng Ning. Why must I like his girlfriend? As long as he is fond of her, that suffices. It's not as if he is dating for my approval. Shen Mingzhi. What if he were to choose someone significantly older? Meng Ning. That would be quite sudden. Meng Ning. Surely he wouldn't choose someone in their 70s or 80s. Meng Ning. Have you encountered his girlfriend, prompting you to subtly pry into my thoughts? Shen Mingzhi chuckled. Not at all. I've merely observed that younger boys seem to favor older women these days, and it sparked this sudden thought. Meng Ning. It's fine to look for an older sister, but wouldn't finding an aunt be a bit? Shen Mingzhi. With your brother's picky nature, can he really find an aunt? Meng Ning. That's true. After chatting with Meng Ning, Shen Mingzhi exited the chat interface. After a moment of contemplation, she clicked on Meng Xiang's profile and quickly typed 4 words and sent them. Happy graduation. Chapter 12. High school boys are so handsome. At the moment Meng Xiang received this message, he was at a karaoke venue with his roommates. Among the 4 of them in the dormitory, 2 boys were preoccupied with their girlfriends, feeding each other watermelon slices in a world of their own. The other, Yang Fan, had recently gone through a breakup during graduation season and now shared the same solitary fate as Meng Xiang. He held the microphone, singing passionately. Last night, I accompanied you in a drunken haze, and my heart shattered. You actually said we were not meant for each other, completely forgetting why we could spend the night entwined. And you kissed, 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 kissed. As he sang these lines, the affectionate couples momentarily paused their actions, casting sympathetic glances at Yang Fan. He seemed to sense their pity, or perhaps not, as he was simply caught up in the emotion of the moment. He tossed aside the microphone. A robust figure at 6 feet tall and weighing 185 pounds, weeping like a child. Meng Xiang was seated next to Yang Fan, who, in his sorrow, tugged at his sleeve, sounding as delicate as an unwed maiden. I liked her so much. Why can't we be together? Yang Fan's breakup was due to one partner being from the south and the other from the north. Suddenly, a vibration from his phone interrupted him. Meng Xiang absent-mindedly glanced at it, his drooping eyelids abruptly snapping to attention. After such a long period of silence, what could happy graduation possibly mean? Meng Xiang was bewildered. He turned off the phone screen and, after a brief silence, roughly tugged at Yang Fan's arm, pulling her outward. Yang Fan, already in tears, was flung away again, her sorrow deepening as she heart-wrenchingly accused Meng Xiang. Could you not be so harsh to someone who's just experienced heartbreak? You, the illustrious campus heartthrob, no longer care for me, do you? Just leave. With that bitter word, Meng Xiang rose and exited the private room. As the door closed, the chaotic spirits within the room fell silent. Meng Xiang found himself in the dimly lit fire escape, enveloped in a haze of desolation. With only the glow of a phone in his palm illuminating his face, his expression remained impassive, yet within the coldness of his gaze, one could faintly discern a hint of resignation. His slender fingers danced across the screen, typing out a few words. Thank you. The message was frigid, akin to mere formality, more a reflection of disinterest than anything else. Shen Mingzhi smirked, her confidence evident as she casually remarked, I think I saw you the other day at the movies. With a young lady. Is she your girlfriend? Meng Xiang replied, What girlfriend? Where did that come from? He continued, Which day? Thankfully, that can't be right. Which day? The 8th of the 13th month, perhaps? Shen Mingzhi suggested with a teasing lilt. Maybe I misremembered, she conceded. It was a bit far off. I just saw a tall, slender guy standing there, and thought he was you because it seemed like you were wearing the same outfit. It's been so long since I last saw you. I mistook him for you. Meng Xiang replied with a disinterested, Oh. Shen Mingzhi shifted her position, lying back comfortably. I forgot. It's been quite some time. Today, while chatting with your sister about you, I suddenly recalled that incident. But don't worry, I didn't mention it to her. Meng Xiang questioned. Why were you two talking about me? Shen Mingzhi answered. ISNT at your graduation? Your sister is quite pleased. Meng Xiang. What is there to be happy about my graduation? Shen Mingzhi. You've reached the legal marriage age now. You can get married. That's what your sister is happy about. Meng Xiang. I was already of legal marriage age before I graduated. Shen Mingzhi. It sounds too naive for a college student to get married. That won't do. Meng Xiang. It's really difficult to have a conversation with him. Shen Mingzhi helplessly gazed at the sky and sighed. Ultimately, she sent him a line of text to conclude their conversation. Nevertheless, I still wish you a happy graduation. That night, Shen Mingzhi updated her WeChat status, as usual, with a song titled Under the Moon. There was also a line of text. How wonderful it is that you have embarked on a new life, while I remain trapped here. He lay on the wooden bed in the dormitory. Unlike the girls' dorms, there were no curtains to prevent prying eyes. The silvery moonlight cascaded down like a waterfall, falling upon his indifferent brows and eyes. He had consumed quite a bit of alcohol during the dormitory dinner, and the effects of the drink amplified his senses under the cloak of night, making him feel as though a cat was crawling on him, fluffy and nuzzling against his most sensitive areas. Why remember when one shouldn't? Yet one remembers nonetheless. With nothing owed, why the jealousy? Back then, the world had already been tended to by another. A simple dish can evoke both joy and sorrow. One should only recall that dandelions will always soar. Tonight, the crescent moon resembles your brow. Allow your face to soar high in the moon's shadow. Time may pass, but beauty remains unchanged. Damn it, Shen Mingzhi. Meng Xiang cursed inwardly. He had never encountered a woman like her, who clearly rejected him yet continued to tease him from time to time. After a prolonged silence, Meng Xiang turned off her phone screen, tucked it beneath her pillow, and buried her head in sleep, disregarding her surroundings. Subsequently, Shen Mingzhi ceased updating her moments. Yet her presence felt more pronounced than ever, as she updated her WeChat status daily. Meng Xiang scoffed at this. But what she found even more ridiculous was her own daily habit of checking Shen Mingzhi's profile to view her status updates. It's so hot outside. I went out for milk tea and discovered a buy one get one free offer. Naturally, I indulged in 2 cups by myself. Oh, but I'm single. Today's sunset is breathtaking. Reminiscent of dessert snow ice, with glutinous rice cakes inside. Do you realize how close you are to naming names, Shen Mingzhi? The basketball court in the community was teeming with youthful lads, and she had to restrain herself. But I couldn't help it. I sneaked a glance. So handsome. High school boys are indeed quite charming. Such trivialities amused Meng Xiang, who consistently responded with a cold, derisive laugh. The phrase that lingered in her mind was, "Why is marriage so troublesome?" The author has something to convey. Meng Xiang, who are you planning to marry? Where's my knife? Shen Mingzhi, you might as well crash Lu Yanxi's wedding to seize a bride. I can't tell if it's Lu Yanxi or Tsin Sui you're after. It feels like it must be Lu Yanxi. Chapter 13. Just consider it my plea. Lu Yanxi's wedding was scheduled for the sweltering month of July. Fortunately, the venue he selected was a renowned summer retreat, located over 3 hours' drive from South City, passing through majestic mountains and beneath a sky as clear as freshly washed water. Fluffy clouds hung low like cotton candy, and the wedding was set in a mountain resort. The gathering was intimate, comprising only close family and friends, with the total number of guests barely reaching 100. The outdoor wedding was accompanied by a daytime carnival, while the older guests formed groups inside to play cards and mahjong, graciously providing space for the younger attendees. Shen Mingzhi, however, felt disinclined to move. Despite the temperature being below 30 degrees, she had slept poorly the previous night and had risen early to apply her makeup, leaving her utterly fatigued. Yet, she had no choice. After all, she was the bridesmaid. Tsin Sui had few friends, and most of the guests at the carnival were friends of Lu Yanxi. Amidst the crowd, Shen Mingzhi suddenly spotted a familiar figure. Just as she was about to call out a name, a voice unexpectedly chimed in beside her. "Goodness, you look stunning today," Zhou Yang exclaimed, his smile broadening. "You're the most beautiful here in that long dress. I almost thought today was your wedding. Let us not kid ourselves. Lu Yanxi is such a cad. Only someone as good-natured as Tsin Sui could tolerate him. Come on, I think Lu Yanxi is quite nice. He is very handsome." "Handsome? Yes, but far too old." Zhou Yang laughed even more heartily, having never heard anyone describe Lu Yanxi with the word old. "He is only a few years your senior." "How can he be old? I simply don't fancy those older than myself." Shen Mingzhi sighed with a hint of melancholy. "I prefer those younger than me. What should I do? I feel rather beastly as well." He was typically one for indulgence and rarely experienced such moments of envy. Yet she could only clench her teeth and swallow all her sorrows, maintaining a facade of carefree laughter and a tone of cynical nonchalance that was impeccably devoid of any sting. That man, the one she shouldn't have developed feelings for? Shen Mingzhi's candid admission left him unsettled. Yes, indeed. Yet now, she found herself confiding in him about the man she truly adored. Zhou Yang forced a smile. Is it truly such an affection? Shen Mingzhi turned to him, her clear eyes reflecting the gentle warmth of a spring breeze. Admitting that perhaps she didn't love him that much, it was just, she felt a sense of unattainability, an inexplicable dissonance within her. "You are simply idle," he remarked. "I share the same sentiment. Yet these days, my work has been overwhelming. Whenever I find a moment's respite, my thoughts inevitably drift to him." Shen Mingzhi was perplexed as to why she shared these sentiments with Zhou Yang. Perhaps it was a sign that her heart was devoid of burdens, that she had genuinely let go. This release was not intrinsic to her, but rather a consequence of Meng Xiang. Meng Xiang possessed a certain allure, effortlessly rendering others utterly devoted to him. If it were any other man, Shen Mingzhi could not have felt this way. Her previous romantic endeavors lacked moral grounding. Her heart was fickle, oscillating between warmth and coldness like the elusive fireflies of summer, visible yet unattainable. Men were always captivated by such a dance. Shen Mingzhi contemplated. Perhaps this was her karmic retribution. Meng Xiang was the insurmountable hurdle in her life. With a deep sigh, half jesting and half serious, she remarked, "I even think of him when I'm using the restroom." Zhou Yang grimaced in disgust. "Can you refrain from being so revolting?" After a pause, he couldn't help but ask, "Why would you think of him in such a moment?" Shen Mingzhi smiled faintly, expressing her whimsical desire to feed him excrement. Is there truly any man as difficult to pursue as he? With just a few casual rejections, he retreats to a great distance. Were it not for his connection as Meng Ning's brother, Shen Mingzhi would have surmised that he had never experienced romance over the years. And she might very well be his first love. She genuinely believed he was merely fishing for attention. Yet, if he was not fishing, what exactly was Meng Xiang engaged in? What else could he possibly be doing? After that rejection, the young man's self-esteem had suffered a severe blow. He recalled vividly how, during a conversation with his sister Meng Ning about her exes, Shen Mingzhi had vehemently expressed, "I detest those men who cling persistently after a breakup. Can't we part ways amicably? It's so bothersome when they come back time and again. If I'm not annoyed, they surely are." What had once been a slight fondness had swiftly transformed into vexation due to his incessant pursuit. Meng Xiang feared becoming the object of Shen Mingzhi's disdain. However, he could hardly remain still. Could it be that Shen Mingzhi was truly on the verge of marriage? He had never heard his sister mention it. After an afternoon of turmoil, his emotions simmered until they reached a boiling point by nightfall, the atmosphere heavy with an oppressive weight that left Meng Xiang breathless. Sitting on the sofa, he tugged at his hair in frustration, then seized his phone to message Shen Mingzhi. When she received his text, a shadow suddenly fell over her, and a figure took a seat across from her. "You look stunning today," he remarked. Peering closely, she smiled and replied, "You look quite handsome yourself, Swayu." She had not been mistaken. The indistinct silhouette she had glimpsed earlier in the crowd belonged to Swayu. Swayu, much like Zhou Yang, is a notorious libertine within their circle. However, Swayu possesses features that are even more beguiling, perhaps owing to his mesmerizing peach blossom eyes, which, when fixed upon someone, seem to cast an enchanting spell that renders them utterly entranced. Swayu smiles nonchalantly, making it quite difficult for you to invite Shen Mingzhi. These days have been overwhelmingly busy. Attending this wedding today was a mere squeeze of time, as I have a flight to Jiangcheng at 6 tomorrow morning. Shen Mingzhi, displaying genuine sincerity, pulls out her phone to show him. "Look, here's my ticket." "I am not deceiving you." Swayu glances at it, not quite able to discern the details, yet he understands that she has no reason to lie to him. "I know you are not misleading me," Shen Mingzhi suggests. "How about this? By September, I should have fewer obligations, and I can invite you out for a drink. What do you say? Where shall we drink? How about USA? Not going. USA is the finest bar in the entire southern city, operating on a membership basis, making it generally inaccessible to the public. The owner of USA is acquainted with Zhou Yang. Swayu and Zhou Yang have been entangled in their debauchery for countless years. Outsiders might presume that Zhou Yang opened a bar solely to indulge in hedonism for life, but Swayu alone is privy to the truth. Some matters remain shrouded in secrecy by Zhou Yang, who has never divulged a word even to the likes of Xiheng or Jiang Zizhou. Only that night during the bar's grand opening, having imbibed copiously, Swayu initially believed Zhou Yang was simply in high spirits, mockingly asking, "Is it really worth being this happy just for opening a bar?" As the friends who had come to celebrate departed, only the two of them remained in the dimly lit booth. Zhou Yang sat directly opposite the LCD screen, the dim light casting a shadow on his enchanting visage. Vibrant, yet ultimately fading into darkness. "Swayu, do you truly think this is worthwhile?" For the first time, Swayu discerned a word from Zhou Yang's countenance: melancholy. The young man had lost his usual flamboyance and vigor, appearing as though he had been forsaken by the entire world, his face flushed with intoxication. Yet his eyes remained lucid, narrating his hopes and disappointments. "She relishes drinking, enjoys revelry, so I opened a bar. Among the attendees tonight are many of her friends. Yet she did not come. Swayu, do you really think this is worthwhile? Spending a fortune merely to catch a glimpse of her?" To others, it may seem as if he had lost himself in frivolity, yet it was all in pursuit of a mere smile from her. In the end, he was met with her disdainful indifference. Even now, Shen Mingzhi continued to refuse him. Swayu feigned ignorance of her relationship with Zhou Yang and inquired, "But that is the finest bar in the South City. You adore drinking, why not go?" Shen Mingzhi was unembarrassed, responding, "I like drinking out of boredom. I don't particularly enjoy bars. The people there seem to seek only fleeting encounters. Although I did find a boyfriend there, it was truly lacking in substance. The acquaintances made over drinks are merely physical. Is it so wrong to just enjoy a drink? Drinking is fine, but not to engage in lewdness." Why? It was then that Swayu realized Shen Mingzhi was indeed quite intriguing, and it was no wonder Zhou Yang was so captivated by her. Shen Mingzhi remarked, "You say is owned by a relative of mine. Should he ever find out, given his character, he would undoubtedly treat me to a free meal. However, I am not one to covet such trifles. Moreover, should I happen to encounter him while mingling with men, or should he find me engaging with women, it would surely lead to an awkward situation for both of us." Her charm lies in her unabashed expression of desire. When she spoke these words, her countenance was open and innocent, evoking no hint of ambiguity. After all, in the realm of adult conversation, there is no need for subterfuge. We are all akin to fox spirits who have honed their craft over millennia. The more one attempts to conceal, the more counterproductive it becomes. Swayu jested, "Is there a possibility that you might meet him there and find mutual attraction?" He chuckled heartily. "What kind of relationship do you share with Zhou Yang? Is he someone who cannot keep secrets?" He inquired. "You are surnamed Shen, and he is surnamed Zhou. Are you a relative through his mother's side?" "No, that can't be right. I recall Zhou Yang's mother is surnamed Yang. I am a relative of his stepmother, Shen Mingzhi replied. A relative of a stepmother hardly counts as family. Indeed, to me, Zhou Yang is like my own brother. As her words faded, the sound of a message notification emanated from Shen Mingzhi's phone. She casually unlocked her device, her expression serene, and in a light, airy tone, she said, "Sui Yu. I have seen you before. On Zhou Yang's 18th birthday, you gifted him an inflatable doll. Damn it. No wonder you have so much patience chatting with him. It seems you recognized him long ago." Sui Yu found the situation increasingly amusing, twirling a lighter idly in his hand, a knowing smile playing on his lips. "You are aware of the relationship I share with Zhou Yang, yet you feign ignorance, deliberately attempting to ensnare me. Are you not?" "Not at all. I simply find it exceedingly dull. It's a rare opportunity to encounter something entertaining, and I cannot let it slip by, can I? So, I am merely your diversion during moments of tedium?" "Not at all. The real diversion is right here." Shen Mingzhi shook her phone, her eyes gleaming with intensity. "The main entertainment has arrived. If you have no pressing matters, you may take your leave." The phone wobbled for a brief moment, and although Sui Yu could not discern the content on the screen, he recognized it as a messaging interface. He raised an eyebrow. "A boyfriend?" Shen Mingzhi sighed. "Not quite. He is someone I am testing the waters with on the moral precipice." Sui Yu chuckled heartily. Her penchant for pushing the boundaries of legality or morality was indeed quite entertaining. Before departing, he left her with a parting remark. "Consider us friends. Should you find yourself truly bored in the future, feel free to seek my company for a drink." "Absolutely not. Seeing you reminds me of Zhou Yang, which is quite bothersome," she decisively rejected. After bidding farewell to Sui Yu, Shen Mingzhi leisurely engaged in conversation with Meng Xiang. "See, the bait is gradually being fed. It will inevitably reach the mouth in due time. Has it arrived?" Meng Xiang inquired. "Are you married?" "Indeed, I am. Do come and wish me a joyous wedding night," she replied, sending the playful remark. In the next moment, the screen displayed the persistent indication of the other party typing. Shen Mingzhi rested her chin on her hand, admiring the screen for a while, yet no response had been forthcoming. However, his voice call replaced the written words. Shen Mingzhi hesitated not, severing the connection. Meng Xiang called again. Shen Mingzhi continued to disconnect. Meng Xiang dialed once more. Shen Mingzhi repeated her action. "It's the wedding night. What do you want?" "Please do not disturb me," she retorted. The frustration in Meng Xiang's voice seemed to penetrate the screen. "Shen Mingzhi, you must answer my call." "Why should I? What is our relationship that you dare to call me at 11:30? After an extended silence, one so long that Shen Mingzhi nearly lost her patience, Meng Xiang suddenly sent a message. "Could you please not be like this? I am begging you to answer my call." His tone, subdued and devoid of dignity, softened Shen Mingzhi's heart. Chapter 14. My desire is when the call connected, an instant of silence enveloped them. The crackling sound of electricity intertwined with the distant, crisp mountain breeze. "If you remain silent, I shall hang up," Shen Mingzhi stated, her tone languid. "Did you not wish for a romantic evening? Why then are you answering my call?" In the art of provoking annoyance, Meng Xiang was indeed skilled. How stimulating, Shen Mingzhi thought, engaging in both love and conversation simultaneously. Meng Xiang paused for a few seconds before responding in an utterly flat tone. "Do you feel the need to say these things to irritate me?" Shen Mingzhi's laughter escaped her lips almost as a snort. "What about these words could possibly provoke your ire?" After a moment, she felt her own crudeness and apologized. "I am sorry. I did not realize you were so conservative. It is my fault for conversing with a minor. Perhaps I should first drink a bottle of bleach." Meng Xiang replied, "I am 22. I am an adult." Shen Mingzhi promptly retracted her words. "I apologize, little brother, but I have never been in love." Meng Xiang, infuriated, chose to remain silent. Conversely, Shen Mingzhi was in high spirits, even humming a tune. Although she was not a music student, her singing was quite enchanting. She had a particular fondness for Cantonese songs, and her pronunciation was impeccable, likely a result of her father hailing from that region. Cantonese melodies seemed to possess an alluring quality that Mandarin songs often lacked. Coupled with her soft timbre, enhanced by the night breeze, they became utterly intoxicating. "How could you accompany me when your sports car has taken me hostage?" My heart races, second by second, and I find myself reminiscing about the beginning. Traveling through the world's myriad landscapes, shrouded in mist, my eyes obscured, I fail to comprehend the cost of embracing you. Each of us has our own entanglements. The melody abruptly ceased. Shen Mingzhi appeared transformed. Her voice, which had once tenderly expressed affection, now resembled that of a character from a song, a person who, after a breakup, has found new love, yet still holds lingering attachments to a former partner. She forced herself to adopt a resolutely heartless demeanor. Meng Xiang, do you wish to know what it feels like to be in love? Meng Xiang swallowed hard. Shen Mingzhi, what do you mean? Shen Mingzhi smiled. And then, the call ended. What else could she mean? The once ambiguous boundary had long been consumed by her desires. She had never before harbored such profound feelings for a man. Perhaps, strictly speaking, he was still a boy. At 22, he was in the prime of his youth, with the future unfolding before him. Shen Mingzhi was beautiful and possessed many admirable qualities. In this era of age gap romances, she did not feel unworthy of Meng Xiang. However, he is the younger brother of a close friend, and that alone caused Shen Mingzhi to hesitate. Some things are like this: the more one retreats, the stronger the inner desire becomes, intensifying the urge to confront oneself. She never particularly liked him, yet his indifference, after a casually uttered rejection, only drew him further away. And his aloof demeanor made Shen Mingzhi increasingly intrigued. The desire to conquer in women often arises inexplicably. As she leisurely walked into the room, she continued to hum the unfinished song from earlier. Could it be that I, without ulterior motives and devoid of feelings, can feign innocence while taking a stroll with you? When my partner waits for me, I shall resent the burdensome nature of my own heart, for it is truly exhausting. After ending the call, Meng Xiang felt an unprecedented weariness. It is true that he had never been in a romantic relationship, but as an adult, he understood the implications of Shen Mingzhi's words. Under different circumstances, he would have embraced that statement to confess his feelings and pursue her fervently. Yet, with Shen Mingzhi, he found himself utterly perplexed by her intentions. He could not discern whether she was merely toying with him out of boredom or if her feelings were genuine. Surrounded by a multitude of admirers, he was but a humble tree amidst a vibrant garden. In the days that followed, neither of them reached out to the other. Meng Xiang ceased his gestures of approval, for after that day, Shen Mingzhi had completely vanished from his social circle. At first, Meng Xiang believed that she had been blocked by Shen Mingzhi. However, upon checking Shen Mingzhi's moments through Meng Ning's WeChat, she discovered that there had been no updates for an entire month. She had vanished completely. Pretending to be casual, Meng Xiang asked Meng Ning, "Sister, do you usually spend your weekends at home with your husband, not going out with friends?" Meng Ning replied nonchalantly, "When one has a boyfriend, who cares about friends?" Meng Xiang was taken aback. "I didn't realize you were so infatuated." Meng Ning tilted her head. "I was talking about Shen Mingzhi." With a resigned sigh, she continued, "It seems she recently started dating a male college student, spending all her time at Bin University, pretending to be a student herself, attending classes, dining, shopping, and even accompanying him to internet cafes to play games. You know how devoted she is to her boyfriends." Meng Xiang's expression darkened instantly. Boyfriend? Indeed. Meng Ning was engrossed in a conversation with Jiang Zizhou and failed to notice the shift in Meng Xiang's mood, continuing, "Once she breaks up, we'll see each other more often." Meng Xiang's gaze was icy, her tone unsettlingly calm. "Can she break up tomorrow?" Upon hearing this, Meng Ning set her phone down, pursed her lips, and couldn't help but exclaim, "Why can't you stand to see Gigi happy? Also, she is older than you. You should call her sister instead of just Shen Mingzhi." Meng Xiang's voice turned profoundly chilling. "I have never regarded her as a sister." Even if Meng Ning was somewhat oblivious, she sensed that her brother was losing his temper. She put away her phone, adopting a serious demeanor. "Meng Xiang, I have but one sister. Though she possesses the youthful visage of a young man, her voice is clear and ethereal, tinged with a hint of darkness that renders it even more chilling. In my eyes, Shen Mingzhi has never been an elder sister. She is simply Shen Mingzhi, not a sister." The romance between siblings has ended in discord. Meng Ning is well aware of the mutual disdain that exists between the two, yet he never anticipated it would reach such depths. One evening, while conversing with Shen Mingzhi, he could not help but broach the subject. On the other end of the line, Shen Mingzhi paused for a few seconds before clarifying with exasperation, "I have said repeatedly, he is not my boyfriend, merely the neighbor's younger brother. As a newcomer, he knows nothing of the school. My aunt asked me to help him acclimate." Do not speak nonsense. Is familiarizing oneself with an internet CAF also part of getting to know the school? This boy, already addicted to gaming, moved his belongings into the dormitory and, before even unpacking, uttered his first words. "Beautiful sister, could you show me the internet CAF? You know how it is. I cannot refuse a sweet-talking lad." Sighing, Meng Ning mused, "If Meng Xiang were a bit more charming, would you not treat him a little better?" Shen Mingzhi's drooping eyelids suddenly lifted. If he were a bit sweeter, perhaps she would genuinely regard him as a younger brother. Yet, he is anything but obedient or sweet. He radiates sharpness from every pore. Shen Mingzhi revels in the thrill of danger, obsessively drawn to that which eludes her grasp, particularly with someone so exceptional. She yearns to drag him down into the depths alongside her. Contemplating this, Shen Mingzhi inquired of Meng Ning, "What if Meng Xiang, with his sweet tongue, proves irresistible to me, and inadvertently, I end up ensnaring your brother?" Meng Ning responded with utmost seriousness, "Which sort of ensnare do you mean? Are you referring to treating him as a boyfriend or merely as a casual fling?" Shen Mingzhi instantly burst into laughter, exclaiming, "Ning Bao, Ning Bao, Ning Bao. How amusing you are." Meng Ning was rendered speechless by her endearing address. "I am simply curious. If it were to be a casual fling, that would truly. After all, he is my brother. Zhi, it would sadden me greatly." Shen Mingzhi retorted, "Wouldn't it be less distressing if a good friend became a sister-in-law?" Meng Ning replied, "The bond would deepen. Wouldn't that be delightful?" Shen Mingzhi's smile broadened mischievously. Meng Xiang proved to be more tolerable than Shen Mingzhi had anticipated, and she, in turn, was more ruthless than Meng Xiang could imagine. Neither made contact with the other. Shen Mingzhi's social media began to flourish, her life vibrant and kaleidoscopic, filled with an abundance of friends. It cannot be deemed ruthless. Rather, in her life, love occupies a minuscule fraction. There are far too many other pursuits demanding her attention. Constantly fretting over love is hardly a commendable habit. Throughout life, one does not solely rely on love. It is wealth that sustains. Shen Mingzhi could confine herself at home for 3 months without stepping outside, wholly engrossed in her work. The day her work concluded was at a little past 3 in the morning. As she turned, she beheld through the floor-to-ceiling window the darkened night, softly blanketed by falling snow, this year's first snowfall. Shen Mingzhi gazed at the snow-laden scenery for an extended period, then opened her WeChat to update her status. "I have heard that making a wish on the first snow will make it come true." A mere 10 minutes after the status update, a friend called her, inviting her for a drink to celebrate the first snowfall. What a futile sense of ceremony, Shen Mingzhi remarked, yet her body betrayed her intentions as she swiftly prepared herself, seized her car keys, and ventured out to join her friends for a night of merriment and hot pot. The steam from the bubbling broth curled languidly around them when a friend inquired, "A man asked for your WeChat. What should I say?" Without even glancing at the man's photograph, Shen Mingzhi dismissed the notion outright. No. It had been nearly 2 years since Shen Mingzhi had been in a relationship. Who would dare believe that? Even she found it hard to accept. Initially, she had refrained from dating, deeming it a bothersome affair, but later she encountered Meng Xiang, that infuriating younger brother, truly a challenge to ensnare. Rest assured, as long as I am not menopausal, my life and body must always accommodate a man. Her friend rolled her eyes. "Please eat with decorum, and reject all forms of vice." Soon, the hot pot restaurant became bustling with a large group, several of whom were acquaintances, leading to a gathering in a private room filled with laughter and food. Among them was someone Meng Xiang recognized, who posted a moment on social media. Unintentionally, Meng Xiang clicked on it, intending to minimize. His fingers froze mid-motion, shifting to a pinch to enlarge the image. Though the side profile was obscured by smoke, Meng Xiang would never mistake it. It was Shen Mingzhi. She was seated beside a man, her gaze not directed at the camera, but rather turned towards him, smiling. Meng Xiang lingered on the photograph for a long time. Perhaps it is truly fated. He seldom suffers from insomnia and rarely clicks on such party photos. Yet, on this rare occasion, serendipity led him to encounter Shen Mingzhi. After such a long time apart, she still thrived vibrantly. It seemed that his presence or absence in her life mattered little to her. That phrase, which might have been a confession, appeared to be nothing more than a casual remark, merely a playful jest at his expense. Meng Xiang felt regret for not taking the bait when she toyed with him. He ought not to have been so earnest. If Shen Mingzhi wished to play with him, why couldn't he simply indulge her? As the hot pot came to an end, the horizon outside began to brighten with the faint light of dawn. Upon exiting the elevator, he lowered his head to retrieve his house keys. After taking just a few steps, he noticed a figure illuminated by the dim corridor lights, the silhouette stretching long beneath her feet. She looked up, and before she could discern the features of the face, she saw him approaching. As he drew nearer, Shen Mingzhi caught the scent of alcohol emanating from him. Meng Xiang, feeling inexplicably bold, muttered, "What?" His voice was hoarse, and as he swallowed hard, he continued, "Come play with me. However you wish, it is all permissible." Shen Mingzhi was taken aback, incredulity washing over her as she gazed at Meng Xiang. Suddenly, he tilted his head, his tongue brushing against her earlobe, his warm breath kissing the shell of her ear. It felt as though her heart was connected to her ear. Otherwise, how could Shen Mingzhi's heart blaze with such fervent heat? Shen Mingzhi, he murmured, I've had a bit to drink and now wish to kiss you. May I? With an almost yearning tone, he had already shifted from her ear to the corner of her lips, his breath scorching her skin in a tantalizing dance of unfulfilled desire. Unable to resist any longer, Shen Mingzhi's hands, previously resting by her sides, suddenly encircled his neck. Just before their lips met, she declared, even without wine, we can kiss. For I am yours, Meng Xiang. It is said that wishes made in the first snow come true. My wish is to possess you. The author has something to say. This concludes our tale. Until we meet again in the next book.